On a dark and stormy night, rain pours down relentlessly over a secluded village nestled in the mountains. This is the headquarters of the infamous Black Death sect. Through the downpour, a lone figure appears, cloaked in black and hidden under a wide-brimmed hat, walking steadily towards the sect's entrance. As if announcing his arrival, a massive bolt of lightning cracks across the sky, illuminating his solitary silhouette against the ominous gate. Inside, he is met with a courtyard full of armed warriors, all standing at the ready, prepared to defend their territory. The sight of the lone intruder makes the guards grit their teeth in anticipation. Panic erupts from the crowd as they recognize the visitor. One of them screams that the Nameless Swordsman is here and gives the order to kill him on sight. Without a word, the swordsman springs into action, his blade clashing against theirs in a flurry of movement. He moves like a phantom, a whirlwind of death cutting through their ranks with terrifying speed. As blades come at him from all directions, he stands his ground, calmly preparing to counter. In a flash, his hand moves to the hilt of his sword. He unleashes a devastating slash, a wave of crimson tearing through the charging enemies. One of the cultists can only watch in horror as blood splatters across his vision. Beneath his hat, the swordsman's expression remains unreadable, his eyes cold and focused amidst the chaos. More warriors rush through the rain-soaked courtyard to join the fight. The remaining sect members surround him, their leader once again shouting the command to kill him. But his attack is effortless, and another body is sent crashing to the ground. Every swing of his sword is a deadly arc, slicing through flesh and bone. He moves through the horde like a force of nature, his dark cloak whipping around him as he cuts down one enemy after another. He tightens his two-handed grip on the sword, building momentum for the brutal onslaught to come. His blade moves in a blur, each swing followed by a spray of crimson that cuts through the pouring rain. Like a phantom, he dances between his opponents, his form a whirlwind of deadly precision. One of the larger warriors manages to get behind him, raising a massive, electrified weapon to deliver a crushing blow. Thinking he has the swordsman cornered, the warrior roars in triumph, sure of his victory. But the attack never lands. The huge blade stops just inches from his hat, as if frozen in time. A strange, glitching sound fills the air, and the world seems to distort for a split second. In the next moment, the swordsman has vanished from his spot and reappeared behind the brute, delivering a fatal strike from the rear. The warrior's eyes bulge in pure shock, unable to process how his target teleported behind him. From beneath his hat, the swordsman's eye is visible, showing not a flicker of emotion. Soon, the only sound left is the relentless drumming of the rain. The courtyard is now silent, littered with the fallen and their broken weapons. The Nameless Swordsman stands alone in the center of the carnage, the last man standing. His work is not yet done. He calmly walks towards the main temple building. There, sitting on the steps, a lone figure waits for him, the leader of the Black Death sect. The old man doesn't seem surprised, as if he knew this moment was inevitable. He looks up, a slight, knowing smile playing on his lips as he gazes at the intruder. The swordsman slowly makes his way across the empty courtyard, his focus entirely on the man waiting for him. As they finally come face to face, a bolt of lightning flashes across the sky, marking the start of the final confrontation. The two warriors lock eyes, a silent battle of wills unfolding in the pouring rain. The sect leader is the first to speak, his calm voice cutting through the storm. "So you are the Nameless Swordsman." The Nameless Swordsman remains perfectly still, offering no response. The sect leader scoffs, finding it suspicious that a so-called swordsman of justice would hide his appearance so thoroughly. The swordsman's reply is short and cold, "Because I'm not one." The leader is taken aback by this. If he's not a righteous warrior, he demands to know why the swordsman has been hunting down the unorthodox sects. Lifting his head, the man reveals a pair of glowing red eyes from beneath his hat, making a chilling declaration. "I am not a righteous swordsman." This answer seems to please the sect leader, a cruel grin spreading across his face. He lets out a hearty laugh, amused that the world has been so easily fooled. But the swordsman denies deceiving anyone. He simply claims that people saw what they wanted to see. The leader calls him an interesting man as he finally draws his own blade, a blue aura beginning to pulse around it. He states that even if he were to die here today, meeting such a unique opponent means he would have no regrets. With his own eyes now glowing a demonic red, he roars for the swordsman to bring it on, ready to fight to the death. The Nameless Swordsman grips his sword, a red aura of energy swirling around him as he prepares to charge. The sect leader takes his stance, his blade shining with a brilliant blue light. The world seems to fall silent as the two warriors face off, the moment stretching on as a single raindrop falls between them. The instant the droplet shatters, they dash forward at blinding speed. The swordsman's eyes glow a fierce red as he closes the distance. The sect leader meets his attack with equal intensity, his focus absolute. Their swords clash, filling the air with a cacophony of screeching metal. After the battle, a quiet darkness settles over the mountain temple. The scene changes, moving up a flight of stairs into the shadows of an unknown building. The swordsman walks away, his footsteps splashing in the blood-filled puddles left in the storm. Blood and water drip from the tip of his blade, washing away the evidence of his grim work. The lone warrior now leaves the Black Death sect's headquarters, the ruins smoldering behind him. He walks with his sword slung over his shoulder, a faint, chilling smile on his face. Suddenly, a brilliant flash of lightning illuminates the sky, revealing his face for the first time. He's younger than one might expect, with messy black hair and blood splattered across his cheek, his expression one of weary disappointment. The scene shifts as plum blossom petals begin to drift through the air. They land gently, floating on the surface of a pool of freshly spilled blood. Here lies the aftermath of another massacre, this time at the legendary Mount Hua. The lone swordsman walks through the sea of bodies, his steps echoing in the silence. The camera pans out, revealing a member of the defeated Mount Hua sect. A massive coalition army, composed of warriors from the orthodox sects, ascends the mountain path. Their leaders can only stare in disbelief, lamenting the horrific fate that has befallen the once great Mount Hua sect. Looking down, they see the path is littered with the corpses of the sect's disciples. A monk utters a solemn prayer, horrified by the scale of the slaughter. The martial artists are outraged, questioning what kind of demon could have stained the sacred mountain with so much blood. Just then, one of them senses someone approaching. In the distance, standing among the fallen, is a lone figure, the same man from before. He walks slowly through the field of bodies, the wind whipping his cloak around him. His whole body was battered and bruised as he struggled to drag himself forward. With his breath coming in shallow gasps, he wheezed that the entire Mount Hua sect had been completely annihilated. The coalition masters are stunned, recognizing him as a plum blossom swordmaster, one of Mount Hua's elite, and shocked that anyone survived. With his final, ragged breath, the plum blossom swordmaster confirms their fears. The entire sect was annihilated by a single person. Before the masters can process this, the killer is already on the move, lunging towards them like a crimson comet. A warning cry rings out as one of the coalition leaders orders everyone to block his path. But it's no use. He cuts through the front ranks of the army in a bloody whirlwind. The main force of the coalition braced themselves against the overwhelming murderous intent, their weapons gripped firmly in hand. One of the leading masters holds his ground, his eyes narrowed as he prepares to clash with the impossibly fast swordsman. But none of them stood a chance. The Mount Hua sect master was instantly cut down in a flash of crimson light. Another master roars in fury, demanding that the cowardly killer show himself. The swordsman lands silently in front of them, his foot splashing in a pool of blood. He nonchalantly tosses forward the severed head of the plum blossom swordmaster he had just killed. Looking over the assembled crowd, he begins to list off the names of the powerful sects who have come to face him: Shaolin, Wudang, Qingcheng, and Namgung. He stares at them with an unnervingly gaunt physique, mockingly noting that they certainly brought quite a crowd. An enraged master orders him to shut his mouth, unable to stand his arrogance. He furiously demands to know who the swordsman is, and what reason he could possibly have for committing such a large-scale massacre. The swordsman replies with a bored expression, explaining that he only came because he heard Mount Hua was the strongest. With those words, he casually tossed the severed head he was holding right into the crowd. It rolled over and over, painting a long, crimson streak across the earth. He finishes his thought with a look of disappointment, concluding that the rumors about their strength couldn't be trusted. The Grandmasters were left completely stunned and reeling in horror, realizing the severed head belonged to the Mount Hua sect leader. A blood-splattered blade slices through the air, leaving a battlefield of warriors behind. A lone swordsman stands amidst the chaos, his sword dripping with blood. He looks at the surrounding army and scoffs, wondering if there'll be any more of a challenge than the last group he slaughtered. A strangled roar escaped one of the martial artists, his eyes rolling back in pure fury at the unknown warrior's maddening audacity. The fallen warrior's allies cry out in rage, vowing to kill the swordsman and avenge their fallen brothers from Mount Hua. Surrounded by a storm of martial arts moves from every angle, Bong-soo stood his ground in perfect calmness. With a mocking grin curving his lips, he pondered. This place is a lot of fun. His eyes gleam with excitement, finding genuine joy in the life-or-death struggle. Suddenly, the world around him begins to glitch and pixelate. The fierce warrior in the game is revealed to be just a player, Bong-soo, sitting in the real world with a VR headset on, a twisted grin plastered on his face. He removes the headset, the red glow from the virtual world still reflected in his eyes as he disconnects from the game. Letting out a deep breath, he slumps back onto his couch. The intense battlefield is replaced by the quiet of his dark, lonely room. He touches his neck, still feeling the phantom sensation of the battle. He wonders if taking on so many opponents at once was too difficult, even for him. On the table in front of him sits the VR gear and the game case, ready for his next dive. The game was called Murim Online. It was a newly developed virtual reality game set in the world of Murim. However, its extreme violence, featuring realistic bloodbaths and dismemberment, had sparked outrage, with countless emails demanding it be shut down. Staring at his phone, Bong-soo admits to himself that there's simply no other game quite like it. He then turns his attention to the TV, lounging on the couch as he considers a different, more quiet approach for his next endeavor. A news report flashes across the screen. The CEO of Dido Industries, a man named No, has been reported missing. A sinister smile creeps across Bong-soo's face as he watches the news. Assassination, he muses, seems like a good choice too. Just then, from a room down the hall, a muffled voice can be heard, weakly begging to be spared. The plea becomes clearer, a desperate cry of "Spare me," now audible from the other room. The sound snaps him back to reality. "Oh, right," he mutters, as if remembering some unfinished business. In the reflection on the TV screen, the terrified face of the missing CEO becomes visible. He gets up from the couch and grabs a nearby weapon, ready to get back to work. In another room, the missing CEO No is on his knees, bruised and bound. He looks up at Bong-soo, pleading for his life. Tears and sweat stream down the CEO's battered face as he continues to beg. Bong-soo walks into the room, raising a heavy sledgehammer, his silhouette casting a terrifying shadow over his captive. He grabs the CEO by the chin, forcing him to look up. "Spare you?" he asks with a cold, mocking tone. Choking and terrified, CEO No insists he's innocent, claiming he has no idea why he was kidnapped. In response, Bong-soo simply tosses a stack of photos onto the floor in front of him. The CEO's face drains of color. The photos are undeniable proof of his horrific crimes. Stuttering in disbelief, he asks how Bong-soo could have possibly gotten them. Bong-soo looks down on him, his voice chillingly calm. He explains that if No were truly innocent, he never would have become his prey in the first place. Caught red-handed, the CEO completely changes his tune, screaming that he's reflecting on his actions and begging to be spared. Bong-soo grabs his face again, clearly getting tired of the man's cries. That phrase, "spare me." He's heard it so many times before. A sinister smile spreads across his lips as he continues. He lifts the hammer high, his eyes glowing red with bloodlust. "Isn't it getting a bit tired?" Without another word, he brought the hammer down with brutal force. But in that split second, a glint of murderous intent flashed in the old CEO's eyes. He had sniffed out an opening. Letting out a furious roar, the CEO sprang to his feet and threw a straight punch right at Bong-soo. Although Bong-soo was forced backward by the blow, he quickly regained his balance. As if the fear of death grants everyone the power of a Superman, the CEO strained his two meaty, pig-trotter arms, desperately fighting his bindings. The bindings ripped to shreds, completely freeing the twisted creep's meaty, pig-trotter arms. The moment he was freed, he gritted his teeth, let out a furious roar, and hurled a barrage of curses at our protagonist. His face twisted with rage, the officer points at Bong-soo and vows that he's dead meat. For a moment, Bong-soo is caught off guard, his eyes widening in surprise. He slowly looked up, a chilling smile gradually creeping across his lips. In his twisted vision, the grotesque, obese CEO was hurtling through the air with a hammer in hand, roaring that he would take his life. The CEO brought the hammer down in a furious, lightning-fast strike. But Bong-soo is no longer in the real world. In his mind, he's back in the game. His eye glows with a menacing red light as he prepares to counter the attack. A devastating punch landed square in the CEO's ribs with such terrifying force that it literally warped his body out of shape. A devastating punch landed square in the CEO's ribs with such terrifying force that it literally warped his body out of shape. But he wasn't done yet. Bong-soo's leg whipped upward, delivering a devastating kick that tore through the wind. He follows up with another devastating blow. The CEO was sent flying across the room, knocked out cold on the spot. Sprawled face down on the floor, the CEO's battered and mangled face was twisted in pure horror at what had just transpired. He scrambles backward, desperately trying to get away from the unfolding madness. His voice cracks as he screams over and over, "I don't want to die." Bong-soo looks down at the pathetic man and begins to explain his twisted worldview. He starts by saying that most humans are like herbivores, weak and harmless. But among them, he continues, there exists a small number of carnivores. These carnivores are predators who hunt and attack those weaker than themselves. They exist only to devour the weak. As CEO No stares up in horror, Bong-soo's shadow falls over him. He finally reveals his twisted purpose, declaring, "And I am the hunter." Who hunts those carnivores? His single red eye glows in the darkness, a predator staring down its prey. As Bong-soo approached with a sledgehammer, the CEO screamed for him to stay back. Cowering in fear, the CEO screamed at the crazy bastard to keep his distance. But right as he prepared to deliver the killing blow, the door at his back violently crashed open. The police swarm into the apartment, their boots thundering against the floor. They surround him, shouting, "Don't move!" Bong-soo is finally cornered, standing over the battered CEO. The lead detective steps forward, his face grim as he calls out his name, Bong-soo. Holding up his badge, the detective formally places him under arrest for kidnapping and confinement. And murder, Bong-soo stares back, his red eyes completely unfazed. He calmly wonders to himself how the police managed to find his hidden location. Without warning, the detective fires a warning shot into the ceiling. He points the gun directly at Bong-soo, warning him that he's using live rounds and he better not try anything funny. But Bong-soo isn't listening. His eye glows red as he peers through a crack in the door, his mind already somewhere else. In his eyes, the police are no longer police. They are an army of warriors, just like in the game. His gaze remains fixed, a strange sense of familiarity washing over him. He thinks to himself that this situation, being surrounded and outnumbered, feels quite similar to his past battles. The detective, getting increasingly agitated, asks if he has any idea what's going on. Bong-soo finally speaks, gesturing to the man on the floor. He informs the police that this scumbag killed 6 women. He explains how the CEO tortured and toyed with them, even taking photos before they died. He then points to the wrapped corpses in the background, revealing that they are all the same, murderers and criminals. These men, he states, are beasts, carnivores that hunt innocent people. "I'm just the hunter who catches those beasts," he says, his voice devoid of emotion. He then points at the cowering CEO, telling the detective that the real monster isn't him, but the man on the floor. The detective is completely unmoved. He calmly lights a cigarette, his gun never wavering. He dismisses Bong-soo's twisted logic, stating that all he sees is a psychopathic killer who kidnaps and murders people. Bong-soo's expression remains stoic, but a subtle shift in his eyes shows he understands. He lets out a sigh, realizing it's useless. He can't communicate with the police, with the herbivores of this world. Done talking, he tightens his grip on his hammer, ready to act. The detective screams, "Freeze!" as he sees him tense up, his finger tightening on the trigger. But Bong-soo is already moving, lunging forward in a terrifying blur. A sharp gunshot tore through the air. Blood splattered everywhere as the heavy hammer crushed the sick CEO's skull, a split second before the bullet could reach its target. As his life fades, a final thought crosses his mind. If there is a next time for me, I hope there are plenty of beasts I can kill without worry. Yeah, a place like the Murim. His body hits the floor, and the world around him begins to fracture. Reality itself seems to split apart, glitching and distorting like a broken game. For a moment, Bong-soo looks shocked as he's pulled into the strange digital rift. Then his expression turns cold, his red eye glowing as he accepts his fate, pulled into a new world. In a brilliant flash of light, he vanishes from the real world, his wish granted. A scream tears through the silence as Bong-soo is jolted into consciousness. His eyes snap open, wide with disbelief. The last thing he remembered was the sound of a gunshot, but somehow he was still alive. A gruff voice cuts through his confusion. A man named Mackle looks down on him, surprised that the boy he'd left for dead was still breathing. But the boy's terrified expression was gone, replaced by a cold, sharp glare. A flash of red in his eyes signals that something has changed. Mackle recoils slightly, unnerved by the sudden change in the boy's demeanor. Annoyed, he lunges forward and grabs the boy by his collar. He shoves his face close, yelling about how much trouble it was to get him from the marketplace, reminding him of his place. He threatens to kill him for real this time, but Bong-soo just stares back with an unnerving calm. Frustrated by the lack of fear, Mackle shoves him away and storms off, declaring he's done for the day. From the darkness, Bong-soo watches him go, his glowing red eye filled with a cold, calculating light. As Mackle disappeared from view, Bong-soo remained on the ground, his hand tightly clutching a stone. His mind was racing, desperately trying to process this bizarre new reality. Once he was completely alone, the tension finally left the air. Suddenly, a strange energy surges through his body. He grits his teeth, a painful scream escaping his lips as his body is racked with power. But the surge is too intense. The frail body can't handle it, and he collapses to the floor, coughing violently. As he recovers, he glances at his hands and his eyes widen. Something feels wrong, very wrong. He frantically touches his own chest, his arms, his face. The realization begins to dawn on him. Surrounded by a dark aura, he looks down at the skinny limbs and bony torso. In a moment of chilling clarity, he understands. This body wasn't his. His hands trace the unfamiliar scars covering his new form. He had no memory of getting these wounds. He crawls towards a nearby window, desperate for answers in his reflection. His eyes tremble. The face staring back from the dark glass isn't his, it's the face of a stranger. As he stares at the strange yet familiar scenery, a chilling realization washes over him. He knows this place. Looking out from the dilapidated stable at the moonlit village, the name finally clicks in his mind. He has been reborn into the world of Murim, the setting of the brutal VR game he loved more than life itself. The weight of this revelation is immense. He slumps against the doorway, trying to process the impossible. He clutches his head, his frail body trembling. Is this a dream, a hallucination? Finally, he collapses to the ground, utterly overwhelmed. But the tears that stream down his face are not of sorrow or despair. They are tears of pure, unadulterated joy. His deepest, most twisted wish has finally come true. A system window flashes before his eyes, confirming his identity, player Bong-soo. A welcome message seals his fate. He has officially entered Murim Online, a world governed by strength and survival. A horrifying, ecstatic grin spreads across his face. The psychopath has found his paradise. The next morning, the sound of a horse snorting fills the stable. The manic killer is gone. In his place is So-sam, the quiet stable boy, diligently cleaning the stalls as if nothing happened. Suddenly, the stable doors are thrown open, and a voice bellows his name. "Hey, So-sam." It's Mackle. Bong-soo immediately slips into character, turning with a frightened look and stuttering the man's name. Pinching his nose in disgust at the smell, Mackle orders the boy to follow him for a job. Playing the part of a timid servant, Bong-soo meekly protests, stuttering that he hasn't finished cleaning yet. He instinctively flinches, anticipating the violence that always follows any hesitation. Mackle's patience snaps. He glares at the boy, making it clear this isn't a request. He grabs Bong-soo, reminding him that he's just a worthless orphan who has forgotten his place. He snarls that So-sam is nothing more than a slave, a creature meant to obey. But behind the boy's terrified facade, a predator's eyes watch and wait, cataloging every weakness. Mackle drags him through the village to a blacksmith's forge, where a massive pile of discarded weapons awaits. Another man, Dongo, arrives with Mackle. The blacksmith seems surprised, asking why Mackle isn't there himself. Dongo smirks, explaining that Mackle is busy at the Bongyang inn. He makes a crude gesture, implying that Mackle is enjoying himself with a woman. The old blacksmith sighs, knowing it's pointless to argue. He eyes the two of them skeptically. He points out that the pile of weapons is far too heavy for just the two of them to move. Dongo laughs heartily, dismissing the old man's concerns. He gestures towards So-sam. Then, without warning, he brutally kicks So-sam, calling him a beast of burden. Bong-soo collapses, the impact knocking the wind out of him. Dong-o taunts him, asking why he's lying on the ground. With a menacing grin, he towers over the boy, ordering him to get up and start moving the weapons immediately. Dong-o cracks his knuckles, a wicked thought crossing his mind. He suddenly remembers he also has an appointment at the inn, and decides to dump all the work on the boy. He pats So-sam on the head condescendingly, wishing him good luck before turning to leave. The old blacksmith watches the scene unfold, his face etched with pity for the boy. He can only shake his head in resignation, knowing there's nothing he can do to help. Left alone, Bong-soo struggles to lift an enormous sack filled with blades, the weight nearly crushing his frail body. The sharp points of the swords and spears dig into his back, drawing blood. He stumbles forward, each step an agonizing effort, leaving a trail of discarded weapons in his wake. He collapses, picks himself up, and continues to gather the scattered blades over and over again. He drags the immense weight through the streets, his body screaming in protest with every step. By the time he finishes, the sun has set, painting the sky in shades of blood red. The old blacksmith watches with a worried expression, telling him he's done enough and needs to rest. He notes how pale the boy looks, his face ashen and his body trembling. He says the boy looks like he's about to die, but Bong-soo simply brushes it off, claiming he's fine. As he walks, the memories of the body's original owner, So-sam, begin to surface, echoing the boy's name in his mind. He feels the boy's final moments, the biting cold and the crushing despair of a pathetic, bug-like existence. Flashes of the brutal beatings the boy endured assault his senses. He sees through the original So-sam's eyes, filled with hopelessness and fear. He remembers the towering figure of his tormentor, yelling at him for being in the way. And he feels the boy's pathetic apology, a desperate plea to avoid more pain. But the apology meant nothing, the violence came anyway. In his final moments, So-sam wondered where it all went wrong as he was kicked and beaten. Was it when a storm killed his family, leaving him the sole survivor? Or was his mistake seeking shelter with the Danri clan, only to be treated as less than human? As his life faded, all the boy could feel was the cold ground beneath him. His last breath was a desperate, unheard plea for someone to save him. The memories fade, leaving Bong-soo lying on the floor of the dark, musty stable. But the despair is gone. In its place is a cold, burning hatred. The predator inside him has fully awakened. A low, chilling chuckle escapes his lips. This pathetic, brutal life was not a tragedy to him, but a perfect opportunity. He picks himself up and walks towards the water trough, the animals in the stable instinctively shying away from his presence. Looking at the reflection of the stranger staring back, he finally puts a name to the face. So-sam, that was the boy's name. He grips the wooden edge, a quiet growl rumbling in his chest, a mix of disgust for the boy's weakness and excitement for his new vessel. He stands in the center of the stable, the very place where the original So-sam took his last breath. It all made sense now, the stable, the memories. The original So-sam was beaten to death right here. And in the boy's empty shell, his own consciousness had found a new home. Just as he accepts his new reality, something catches his eye. A glowing blue panel materializes before him. It's the status window from Murim Online. The game has followed him into this world. A system window suddenly materialized, welcoming the player to Murim Online. He could only stare in disbelief, recognizing the interface from the game. His vision cleared, revealing a world straight out of ancient history. The architecture, the people's clothing, it was all unfamiliar, a far cry from the modern world he knew. He found himself holding a bowl filled with a mushy, unappetizing meal, the kind of food given to the lowest of the low. A man named Jang-ho grumbled to himself, annoyed that he was the only one in the entire Danri clan tasked with cleaning up horse manure. He thought that if the boy had finished his work, he should have just gone home instead of causing trouble. He cursed his bad luck for running into the infamous psycho, Ping Duryang, and worriedly recalled sending someone named Dong-o with him. Jang-ho's frustration boiled over. He couldn't understand why a great man like himself had to clean up the messes of a half-wit. In the darkness of his thoughts, a sinister idea formed. He decided he should just kill the boy himself. His hand twitched, imagining the act. But he quickly dismissed the thought, clenching his teeth as he realized the risk was far too high. If he got caught, he knew he'd be the first to be executed. With that, he kicked the door open to where the boy was staying. He hurled the bowl of food at him, screaming in frustration about how the boy's useless existence was making his life difficult. The bowl clattered onto the dirty floor, its contents spilling everywhere as the boy sat weakly on the ground. But through the matted hair and grime, his eyes were open, quietly observing everything. He thought to himself that it had already been 2 weeks since he first woke up in this strange place. Based on what he'd gathered from Jang Ho's ramblings and his own observations, he began to piece together his current situation. First, even though the people here used Chinese characters, this place was clearly not China. The reason was simple, proven by the warriors training in the courtyard. He watched as their swords pulsed with a strange, blue energy, an impossible sight in his old world. It was the undeniable proof that this world possessed something that didn't exist back on his Earth, real martial arts. Techniques he once thought only existed in fiction were now completely real. In this world, people could leap through the air, defying gravity as if it were nothing. They moved faster than the eye could follow, their blades cutting through the air with impossible speed. A warrior let out a powerful shout, his voice echoing with energy. An entire legion of fighters trained in perfect unison, their combined shouts shaking the very ground. His eyes, now glowing a faint red, took in the unbelievable sight before him. He finally understood. In this place, the martial arts he'd only read about were a living, breathing reality. It was exactly like a live-action version of the game he obsessed over, Murim Online. He continued his analysis. His second major discovery was the glowing blue status window floating before him. To be precise, the status window from Murim Online was fully functional, but for some reason, he was the only one who could see it. He clenched his weak fist. Initially, he'd thought this was all just a game, but the feeling of his own hand, the air in his lungs, this was definitely reality. He thought about the people he'd encountered so far. Every single person here had their own will, their own twisted emotions. They weren't just mindless NPCs. They were alive, and they were moving according to their own desires. He looked at his reflection in the system window, a crucial question forming in his mind. In this world, was he a human or a player? A small, curious sound escaped his lips. The question didn't scare him, it intrigued him. Suddenly, a voice cut through his thoughts. A portly man with a greasy smile leaned through the doorway, sarcastically greeting Brother Sam. The man's face twisted into a sneer. He was furious that he'd been punished because of some idiot, and he was here to take it out on him. The man advanced, looming over the boy who sat silently amidst the filth on the floor. But he paused, a confused sound escaping his lips. To his surprise, the boy was slowly getting to his feet. Then the boy did something unexpected. He picked up the broken, dirt-covered bowl. In front of the stunned bully, he began to shovel the spilled contents into his mouth as if it were a gourmet meal. The man could only stare in disbelief. His shock quickly turned to fury. He screamed at the boy for ignoring him, his voice cracking with rage as he threatened to end his life. But in that moment, something changed. The boy's eyes flashed a terrifying red, and in his hand was a sharp fragment from the broken bowl. Before the bully could even react, the boy lunged, driving the ceramic shard deep into his flesh. A choked scream escaped the man's lips as blood sprayed from the wound. The boy's attack was brutally fast and precise. Gone was the weak, trembling child. In his place was a predator, his eyes burning with a cold, merciless fire. He clamped a hand over the man's mouth, his grip like iron. The only sound was a muffled, gurgling gasp for air. As the man, Guak Dongo, choked on his own blood, the boy leaned in close to whisper a chilling secret. The words came out in a low, guttural gurgle, a sound of pure malice. He snarled that the weak little boy he used to torment had died a long time ago. A low growl rumbled in his chest, the sound of a beast finally unleashed. But he wasn't finished. He began to pummel the man's face with his bare fists, each blow landing with sickening force. Guak Dongo's screams of agony filled the air as the boy brutally gouged his fingers into his eyes. The attack devolved into a red haze of pure, unrestrained violence. In the darkness, his form became a demonic silhouette, methodically and joyfully tearing his victim apart. Blood splattered across the stable, a chaotic canvas painted by a psychopath's rage. When the frenzy finally subsided, only a shadowy figure remained, standing over the mangled corpse of his first kill in this new world. A deep, satisfied laugh echoed in the bloody silence. He closed his eyes, covered in blood, feeling a familiar warmth spread through his body. "It's hot," he muttered. It was the exhilarating heat of the hunt, a feeling he hadn't realized he'd missed so much. He stood amidst the carnage, the previous question returning to him. Human, player, in the end he realized it didn't matter at all. The warmth of the blood, the thrill of the kill, it all confirmed his suspicion. This place, without a doubt, was reality. He could feel it emanating from the corpse at his feet, and from the other bully Makil. It was the great, unspoken law of this world. A world drenched in blood and ruled by a single brutal principle, the law of the jungle, survival of the fittest. A spark of ecstatic realization lit up his eyes. He had found his paradise. If this was his new home, then he would no longer have to hide his true nature. He could finally hunt to his heart's content, just like the predator he was. Because in this savage land, other carnivores, even stronger and more monstrous than him, roamed free. This was the jungle they called the Murim. A twisted, blood-soaked grin spread across his face. He finally felt alive. And he made a silent vow. As soon as this pathetic body recovered its strength, the hunt would begin again. He wasn't interested in the small fry. He would go after the true predators of this world. Here, under the cold moon, a monster had been unleashed upon a new hunting ground, the Murim. The room where Guak Dong-o's body used to be. The hunt for his next target is about to begin. The scene flashes back to the blood-soaked room where he sat after his first kill. But from behind the mask, Bong-soo's thoughts are cold and clear. A man like Makil isn't even worth hunting, but there's something he needs to test. With the bloody mess of his first kill before him, Bong-soo begins to inspect the strange new powers he's acquired. He calls out a single command, activating a familiar feature from the game he used to play, the inventory. But as Bong-soo stares at the swirling blue panel, he realizes that something about it is very different from what he remembers. In the game Murim Online, the inventory was a simple grid where each item took up a single slot. This, however, wasn't a grid at all. It was one enormous empty space. He reaches out and his hand phases right through the surface, plunging into the void within. He's stunned by the sheer size of it, a personal dimension that feels at least 300 square meters large. His gaze shifts from the inventory back to the corpse lying on the floor. An idea sparks in his mind as he once again reaches for the system window. He grabs the body by its head, remembering a key function from the game. With his hand covering the man's face, he gives the command, "Store in inventory." Instantly, the body begins to glitch and dematerialize, as if being erased from existence. It's pulled into a swirling vortex of light, breaking apart into digital fragments. And just like that, the corpse vanishes without a trace. A glint appears in Bong-soo's eye, an inventory that can make a body disappear instantly. This is an incredibly useful feature for someone like him. But this newfound power raises a chilling question in his mind. Can he put living things in there? And if so, what would happen to them? A sinister smile creeps across his face. He realizes he'll need to do a few more experiments to find out. Meanwhile, the day is bright and peaceful at what appears to be a local sect's headquarters. In the courtyard, two warriors are deep in conversation, completely unaware of the monster lurking nearby. They're sharing some juicy gossip, laughing amongst themselves about the latest rumors spreading through the sect. But their laughter dies down as one of them notices the silent figure of Bong-soo standing nearby, his face an unreadable mask. He turns around abruptly, his attention now fully on the boy. In a flash, he shoves Bong-soo back, confronting him aggressively. The man, his supervisor Lord Makil, sneers at him, mocking him for having gone mute. Bong-soo just lets out a few grunts, putting on a disturbingly vacant smile to play the part of a half-wit. Makil shoves him again, clearly disgusted by his presence. He points towards the stables and orders him to take a horse out for a walk. With another unintelligible grunt, Bong-soo bows deeply in submission. Makil clenches his fist in frustration, complaining about having to deal with a brat who can't even speak properly anymore. A short while later, Bong-soo is quietly leading the horse through the village streets. The marketplace is bustling, with people going about their daily lives. Everyone seems to be minding their own business, trading goods and talking amongst themselves. But through his lifeless eyes, Bong-soo sees everything. He notices a group of children hiding in an alley, clearly waiting for him to pass by. As he gets closer, they leap out from their hiding spot and hurl a rock at him. It strikes him hard on the side of the head, yet he doesn't even flinch. He just keeps walking. Blood begins to trickle down his neck, but his expression remains utterly blank, as if he felt nothing at all. Emboldened, the kids run after him, making faces and mocking him. They call him dummy and stupid so Sam, laughing that he can't even talk anymore. But their taunts catch in their throats when one of them looks up, his face suddenly filled with fear. For just a split second, the image of the weakling flickers, replaced by a terrifying predator whose eyes glow with a menacing light in the darkness. The child rubs his eyes, convinced he must have imagined the whole thing. When he looks again, Bong-soo is just the same dummy as before with a vacant smile as he gently pats the horse. The terrifying monster is gone. Without another glance, Bong-soo turns and walks away, leaving the confused bullies behind. The lead bully tries to save face with a forced, nervous laugh. He yells insults after him, but his taunts are weaker now, shaken by what he just saw. As their voices fade, we hear Bong-soo's true thoughts. To them, he's just a mute who can't do anything, an easy target. And that's exactly what he wants them to think. An idiot is the perfect disguise for a predator. He continues on his way, his plan already in motion. Elsewhere, Lord Mackle is complaining to himself. He feels that a man of his talents shouldn't be stuck cleaning weapons, and is annoyed that his subordinate, Guak Dong-o, has been missing for days. He heads towards the weapons storeroom, sarcastically wondering if the man dropped dead somewhere. But as he reaches the door, he's surprised to see Bong-soo walking out. Mackle's eyes go wide. He looks past the boy and sees that every single sword and spear in the room is sparkling, having been perfectly cleaned and organized. He can't believe it. He wonders if this mute brat actually did all of his work for him. Bong-soo just offers him that same, creepy, subservient smile. Mackle is completely bewildered. He thinks to himself that ever since So-sam almost died, he's become a completely different person, fast, efficient, and doing things without even being asked. He even has the thought, has he finally become a decent human being? With a twisted smile, So-sam offers a heavy pouch of coins to his greedy supervisor, Mackle. Mackle takes the pouch and opens it, his eyes catching the glint of the gold coins inside. He can't believe his luck. His eyes widen, a wave of pure greed washing over him as he stares at the small fortune. Mackle bursts into laughter, throwing his arm around So-sam. He praises the boy, thinking the fool has finally learned to bribe his way into favor. He pats So-sam's head condescendingly, telling him to keep up the good work, completely oblivious to the boy's true intentions. As Mackle walks away clutching his prize, So-sam watches from the shadows, a sinister smile spreading across his face. The bait has been taken. His expression shifts, the mask of the fool dropping to reveal the cold, predatory eyes of a killer. So-sam thinks to himself with dark amusement. The idiot doesn't even realize he's just accepted payment for his own funeral. Later that night, Mackle struts through the town, proudly holding the pouch and lecturing someone off-screen about being more flexible. He shakes the bag, feeling its weight and gloating about how full his pockets are for the night. With a twisted grin, he decides to visit a woman named Cha-sun instead of his usual pick. Tonight, he's a wealthy man. He arrives at the Bongyang Inn, a place of food and entertainment, casually tossing the pouch of money in the air. He's ready to spend. The portly innkeeper rushes out to greet him with a wide, welcoming smile, recognizing Lord Mackle immediately. Mackle doesn't waste any time, ordering the man to bring out Cha-sun for him. The innkeeper hesitates. He notes that Mackle usually asks for someone else, and the name, Cha-sun, catches him by surprise. Mackle just confirms the order with a crazed look in his eyes, his patience clearly wearing thin. The innkeeper's face darkens, a hint of suspicion in his eyes. He knows Cha-sun is expensive, and Mackle isn't usually this wealthy. Sensing the doubt, Mackle shoves the pouch forward, telling the innkeeper not to worry because he has the cash right there. His greed satisfied, the innkeeper's smile returns. He tells Mackle to head to a room on the second floor, promising to bring Cha-sun right away. Mackle settles into the private room, sipping his drink and waiting eagerly for his guest to arrive, completely unaware of the true danger that awaits him. A voice announces their arrival from outside the door. The guest has arrived. The door slides open, and Mackle's eyes go wide. A woman named Cha-sun stands there, and he's completely captivated. He's completely stunned by her beauty, thinking to himself that she's on a completely different level from anyone he's been with before. Trying to act composed, Mackle clears his throat and awkwardly gestures for her to sit down. Cha-sun gracefully kneels before him and offers to pour him a drink. Mackle is so flustered he can barely speak. He nervously agrees, laughing to himself, completely absorbed in the moment. Yet outside the room, someone was spying through a gap in the wall, watching the oblivious bastard blindly admire Cha-sun's hands. He beckoned her closer, and right through the crack, a single glowing red eye became clearly visible. The red eye of So-sam glares through the opening, watching his prey with terrifying intensity. The hunt is on. A predatory grin spreads across his face as he prepares to make his move. The scene briefly flashes back to the innkeeper's instructions, confirming that this isolated room was part of So-sam's plan all along. The innkeeper watches as his new high-paying customer walks up the stairs, heading straight into the trap. The innkeeper looks down, disgusted that Mackle would spend so much on a girl young enough to be his daughter. He opens the pouch of coins, his greed taking over. But in the end, he shrugs it off. Money is money, after all. He puts a coin to his eye with a huge, greedy grin. Suddenly, a shadowy figure appears at the door. The man inside calls out a welcome, but then trails off as he recognizes the visitor. It's So-sam standing there like a phantom. The man inside is shocked to see him. The man, who seems to be a guard or another employee, quickly stands up, startled by So-sam's sudden appearance. He gets in So-sam's face, sneering as he asks what a mute is doing in a place like this. He threatens So-sam, telling him to get lost right now, but his threat is cut short mid-sentence. Before the man can finish his sentence, So-sam shoves the bag of money into his hands, his eyes wide with a crazed, desperate look. He lets out a few stutters, playing the part of a terrified mute who can't speak properly. The man looks down at the heavy pouch, his expression changing from aggression to curiosity. He opens it and sees that it's filled to the brim with coins. His eyes widen in shock and greed, just as Mackle's did. He's been successfully bribed. His demeanor completely changes. With a sleazy grin, he tells So-sam that if he waits in a nearby room, he'll bring another girl right away. The path to Mackle is now clear. And just like that, with the guards paid off, So-sam walks up the stairs of the Bongyang Inn, completely unobstructed. Inside the room, So-sam prepares his weapon, a simple strip of cloth. He sneaks up behind Mackle, who is too busy flexing and admiring himself to notice. The fool is completely defenseless. In one swift motion, he wraps the cloth around Mackle's neck, pulling it tight. The attack is sudden and silent. Mackle's smug expression instantly turns to one of shock and pain. He chokes, his eyes bulging as the cloth cuts off his air supply. He gasps for breath, his hands clawing uselessly at the garrote around his throat. So-sam pulls even harder, the fabric digging deep into Mackle's neck. With his last moments of consciousness, Mackle turns his head, finally seeing the face of his attacker. He can't believe who it is. Mustering every last ounce of his strength, he viciously headbutted So-sam in the jaw, sending a spray of blood from his mouth and forcing him to reel backward. With one final, desperate shove, Mackle threw his remaining weight forward, sending both of them crashing backward. Both of them slammed hard onto the floor with a heavy, sickening thud. But not a single ripple of emotion crossed So-sam's face. His glowing red eye radiated nothing but a cold, chilling satisfaction. He relentlessly kept pulling the cloth tight, making absolutely sure his target would drop dead. The first hunt in this new world was still going exactly as planned. A man's eyes shot open in pure terror. The bastard's arms and legs started to spasm, thrashing helplessly in the air as his body lost all control. The strip of cloth continued to tighten relentlessly around his neck, choking the life out of him as he struggled in desperate agony. The one behind the attack, Bong-soo, revealed a twisted, predatory smile, his red eyes glowing with excitement. He stared upwards with a look of pure ecstasy, savoring the final moments of his victim's life. The man's eyes went bloodshot, a silent scream frozen on his face. From the darkness, a pair of crimson eyes stared back, belonging to a monster in human form. It was over. The man lay dead, his eyes pale and lifeless, while Bong-soo looked down, completely satisfied. A cold, calculating gaze replaced his earlier frenzy. The hunt was done. Now he had to deal with the aftermath. He got up, looking down at the body with a detached expression. He sat in the quiet room, the deed done, his mind already moving on to the next step. His eyes narrowed, focusing on the corpse. It was time to test his new power. With the body left on the floor, Bong-soo walked towards the center of the room. He stood before a wooden wall, the bodies of his other victims scattered around him. There was no trace of remorse on his face. He focused, and a slit of light appeared in the empty space before him. He reached out his bandaged hand towards the strange phenomenon. A blue spatial portal opened up his personal inventory. He knew he had to stash the corpse immediately. He smirked, thinking to himself that his prior practice with the inventory was paying off. Seeing how the evidence from his last kill vanished without a trace, he knew this ability would be a massive help for all his future hunts. However, his mind was already elsewhere. Something had just been confirmed. He checked his system window, a suspicion solidifying in his mind. And there it was, just as he'd hoped. The system notified him that he had gained experience and his level had gone up. The horrifying truth was now undeniable. In this new world, killing people granted him experience points. The implications crashed down on him. With enough experience, he could level up, and leveling up would make him stronger. His eyes widened, glowing red with a dark realization. He looked at his hands, realizing that being stronger would make hunting easier. And as hunting became easier, he would gain experience even faster, a terrifying feedback loop. It meant that in this place, he could become infinitely strong. He clutched his head, a manic ear-to-ear grin spreading across his face as the corpse from his hunt still lay on the floor. For a killer like him, this world was truly a wonderful place. A low-angle close-up captures the pure satisfaction in his every movement as he continues to savor the lingering aftertaste of the hunt. He stared down at his victim with cold, predatory eyes, only to suddenly notice something rather intriguing. Framing his hands like a camera lens, he admired his masterpiece, a silent predator observing its prey. His victim, Lord Mackle, was now dead. Bong-soo's only regret was that he didn't have a camera to immortalize the moment. Meanwhile, outside the room, a guard stood watch, completely unaware of the murder that had just taken place. Suddenly, a woman named Chasen rushed down the hallway, startled by the guard's presence. She hurried to the door of the room, calling out to see if the guest was inside. The innkeeper of Bongyang appeared, annoyed at the delay. He impatiently told her to get in there, reminding her that even if the customer is a mute, he's still a paying one. Chasen quickly agreed, opening the door and apologizing for being late. The innkeeper watched her enter, a flicker of suspicion on his face. He frowned, a strange thought crossing his mind. Were those two moving in together or something? It seemed odd. He gritted his teeth, his patience wearing thin. Something was definitely wrong. He knocked loudly on the door, calling for Mackle and telling Chasen to come out. When he still didn't get a response, he told them to get some rest, his voice laced with irritation. But from inside the room, there was only dead silence. The innkeeper's face flushed with anger. He couldn't believe they were seriously ignoring him. He opened his mouth to yell at them for their disrespect. But he was cut off by a blood-curdling scream from within the room. Without a second thought, he slammed the door open, demanding to know what was happening. His eyes widened in absolute horror at the scene that greeted him. Inside, a body was hanging from the ceiling, swaying gently in the dimly lit room. The feet of the corpse twitched in their final moments. It was Mackle. The guard who had been standing outside stared in disbelief, stammering his brother's name. Our story begins in Anhui, a land of vast plains where the Hua and Yangtze rivers flow. Since ancient times, its fertile lands and intersecting rivers have made it a major center for commerce and trade. But wherever money gathers, so do thieves and villains. Bandits from unorthodox factions began to run rampant across the land. In response, many clans and sects dedicated to upholding the code of the Murim were established in Anhui to fight back. Among them, two were the most prominent: the Namgung clan, one of the 5 great clans, and the Danri clan. Though not as powerful as Namgung, the Danri clan boasted its own specialized fighting force and an intelligence group called the Black Crow Squad, making it well known throughout the region. The Black Crow Squad's information network was so formidable that even the beggar sect had to admit they were superior, at least within Anhui. But recently, this very squad has been struggling with a new and unsettling case. Inside the clan's headquarters, a subordinate reports to his superior, holding out a scroll with the latest findings. The man receiving the report is Gi Dihyo, the sharp-witted leader of the Black Crow Squad. His expression is grim as he listens to the disturbing details of the case. He reflects that while suicides are not uncommon, the recent spike in numbers is highly unusual. Something is definitely wrong. What troubles him the most is how perfect each case is. All evidence and circumstances point unequivocally to suicide. He narrows his eyes, questioning if such a thing is truly possible. His instincts tell him something is being overlooked. Gi Dihyo asks his subordinate who the first victim was. The man replies that it was an armory artisan from their clan named Machil. This confirms Gi Dihyo's suspicion. The incident involved someone from the Danri clan directly. Losing his patience, Gi Dihyo grabs the man, demanding to know where Ma-chil died. The subordinate quickly answers that it happened at an inn, the Phoenix Tavern. Without hesitation, Gi Dihyo announces they're going. His subordinate is shocked, saying there's no need for the leader to investigate in person. But Gi Dihyo is resolute, declaring that he has to see the scene with his own eyes. Gi Dihyo and his men arrive at the Phoenix Tavern, the place where the first victim died. Standing before a closed door, he turns to the innkeeper to confirm if this is the correct room. The innkeeper of Bongyang bows his head, confirming that this is indeed the room where he and his employee found Ma-chil's body. Gi Dihyo's mind races, if this suicide plague is actually a string of murders as he suspects. Then how did the killer get into this seemingly sealed room to murder Ma-chil? He steps inside to investigate. He meticulously inspects the room, his footsteps echoing on the wooden floor. After searching every nook and cranny, he confirms his initial assessment. There's no way for a culprit to have entered without being seen. His gaze then falls upon the wooden wall separating this room from the next. He realizes the only remaining possibility lies there. His sharp eyes examine the vertical logs making up the partition wall. He realizes that if these logs were removed, it would provide easy access from the adjacent room. But there's a major flaw in that theory. A closer look reveals the logs are covered in undisturbed dust. They haven't been moved in a long time. He turns to the innkeeper and asks if there's any way to remove the logs without taking off the entire roof. The innkeeper dismisses the idea immediately, explaining that the logs are set into deep grooves in both the ceiling and floor beams. He states that it's physically impossible to pull them out without dismantling the structural beams first. The room is a fortress. With all possibilities exhausted, Gi Dihyo is forced to consider that it might have been a suicide after all. But his instincts won't let him give up. He asks one final, critical question. Was anyone staying in the room next door at the time of death? The innkeeper confirms that there was another guest, someone who likely arrived at the same time as Ma-chil. Gi Dihyo's eyes widen with intensity as he demands the person's name. The answer comes back, So-sam of the Danri clan. A new lead, the name of the man from the room next door, So-sam. And at that very moment, the man in question, Bong-soo, is calmly leading a horse through town, his mind preoccupied with the results of his last hunt. As he walks, Bong-soo checks his status window. He recalls that the experience points from his most recent kill were far greater than any before. He quickly comes to a realization. The man he killed must have been a martial artist. He clenches his fist as he grasps the fundamental rule of this world. Killing stronger opponents yields more experience points. But he remains pragmatic. With his current frail body, he knows fighting a proper martial artist would be suicide. He's weaker than even the lowest-ranking warrior of the Danri clan. This means he needs a specific kind of target, prey that can bridge the gap between weak commoners and powerful martial artists. Just then, a coarse voice breaks his concentration, mocking his appearance. His path is blocked by a group of thugs. They surround him, taunting him for not greeting his elders. One of them leans in close, trying to get a reaction. The leader laughs, sarcastically defending him, saying little So-sam would never ignore them. Bong-soo's eyes narrow in annoyance. He recognizes them as nothing more than common street thugs. He scoffs internally. The original So-sam was still part of the Danri clan. It was pathetic that he let himself be pushed around by such scum. The thug leader sneers, wondering aloud how So-sam could have lived such a pathetic life. Losing all patience with the brat's stony silence, he flew into a rage, lashing out to grab Bong-soo by the head and yanking it back violently. His eyes flashed dangerously as he dragged So-sam away by the head, deciding it was time for a private chat. They drag him and his horse into a dark, secluded alleyway. As he's being dragged, Bong-soo's mind is already calculating. Could he kill them all and disguise it as another suicide? He considers using his inventory to dispose of the bodies, but causing a scene here is too risky. It's better to maintain his cover as a weakling for now. Besides, the experience points from killing them would be minimal. He decides to take the beating for now and eliminate them later. The thug sneered, remarking that he'd put on some decent weight lately, before bracing himself to deliver another heavy blow. Just as the fist neared his face, an icy voice cut through the air. Enough! A silhouette gradually materialized, walking out from the darkness into the light. The thugs are frozen in shock by his sudden command. From the shadows, their leader Jang Ho emerges, casually asking his men why they didn't bring So Sam over nicely. One of the thugs stammers his name, clearly startled by his appearance. So now he had a name for the man in charge, Jang Ho. Jang Ho completely ignores So Sam, instead turning his attention to the magnificent horse, stroking it with a greedy smile. He reveals his plan, mentioning that his own leader is obsessed with fine horses and that he intends to present this one as a gift. He then turns back to So Sam with a mocking grin, asking for his opinion on the matter as if he had any choice. A thug grins sinisterly, the group's malicious intentions now perfectly clear. So Sam's eyes narrow. The blatant killing intent was undeniable. They were going to kill him and steal his horse. But in that moment, Jang Ho had made a fatal mistake. He had chosen the wrong person to prey on. Completely unaware that he had just made a fatal mistake, Jang Ho shoved his face right into So Sam's, threatening that he wouldn't ask a second time. But So Sam's demeanor has completely changed. He looks up with cold eyes, challenging them. Then just kill me, why bother asking twice? The thugs are stunned into silence. They couldn't believe it, the mute could actually talk. Before they can react, So Sam moves with blinding speed, striking Jang Ho. He calls out a single word, inventory. A brilliant flash of light erupts from his hand. In a split second, a gleaming sword materialized in his hand, lunging straight for the leader's throat before he could even let out a scream. The world twists and blurs from the dying man's perspective as his life fades away. Jang Ho, bleeding from the first attack, stares in disbelief, unable to comprehend how this weakling suddenly became a demon. His arms slowly went limp, the spark of life in him gradually faded away. As the thug collapsed, a brilliant pillar of light erupted from So Sam's body, enveloping both him and his horse. An explosive wave of energy blasts outwards. He has just leveled up. A thug raised his hand to block the encroaching light, feeling an overwhelming weight as if heavy chains were grinding him down. Suddenly, a notification window appears in front of Bong-soo. He's reached level 2. As the light slowly faded, it revealed the thugs' faces, already drenched in cold sweat. The air grows cold. The weak, frail boy is gone, replaced by a dark figure emanating pure killer instinct. Seeing this transformation, one of the thugs stammers in pure terror, calling him a demon. Witnessing the scene, the thugs bellowed in rage, shouting for everyone to swarm and put an end to the monster in front of them. The thugs charge, but their assault is met with brutal force, and one of them lets out a final, agonizing scream. Witnessing this, one of the thugs backed away, his will completely shattered as he prepared to bolt. He stumbled away in a blind panic before collapsing, his body hitting the ground with a heavy thud. Scrambling backward, he looks up and sees the terrifying figure walking toward him from the end of the alley. Frozen with fear, the man's face twists in horror as he begs for his life. But his plea is met with a swift kick that sends him flying through the air. He crashes hard against the wall, slumping to the ground in a heap. His vision starts to fade as he lies there, defeated and broken. He reaches out a hand, his mind refusing to believe that this is the end. As his life flashes before his eyes, he remembers Bong-soo as nothing more than a weakling. He was just a money bag, someone they could beat up any time to get some cash. He can't understand what went wrong. He never expected this. It was supposed to be a simple shakedown, just like all the others, but instead of an easy mark, he ran into a monster. Just as the thug's consciousness starts to fade, a hand grabs his head. Bong-soo's cold voice mutters that this whole situation is just frustrating. As Bong-soo stands over him, the last thug can only lament his fate. To think he would die at the hands of some ordinary-looking kid who turned out to be a demon. Sometime later, the thug slowly begins to regain consciousness in the dark alley. He groans in pain, his body aching from the beating he took. He snaps awake, letting out a horrified gasp as the memory of the massacre comes rushing back. A calm voice asks if he's awake. The thug looks up to see Bong-soo and can only stammer in terror, calling him a demon. The thug, now tied up, trembles on his knees. Bong-soo lets out a sigh, clearly annoyed. Suddenly, a knife appears in Bong-soo's hand, the sharp blade gleaming dangerously. With a predatory glint in his eyes, he holds the knife to the man and asks for the name of the thug who died first. Terrified, the thug stammers, asking if he means their leader, Jang Ho. Bong-soo confirms the name, pressing the blade to the man's throat as he tries to remember the name of their gang. The thug panics and blurts out that they belong to the Black Snake Society, a name that catches Bong-soo's interest. He quickly explains that the Black Snake Society is part of the larger Ebony Syndicate that rules the city's underworld, and that Jang-ho was one of its executives. Bong-soo processes this new information, an executive of a major gang. This was becoming more interesting. He then recalls Jang-ho mentioning a leader, pushing the thug for more details. Panicked, the thug reveals everything. Their leader is Bang Po-yom, and it was he who ordered Jang-ho to kill Bong-soo and steal his horse. Bong-soo smirks. So these organizations had a proper hierarchy, much like modern gangs. They would be his new hunting ground. The thug breaks down into tears, completely broken. Bong-soo simply says, "Fine." He then makes an offer. Tell him everything about the Ebony Syndicate and the Black Snake Society, and if the information is good, he just might let him live. A glimmer of hope appears on the thug's face. He asks with desperate joy if he's really going to be spared. But it was a lie. After extracting all the information he needed, Bong-soo disposed of him just like the others. With the fight over, Bong-soo activates his inventory, making the bodies of the thugs vanish without a trace. He lets out a small sigh of relief, glad that the cleanup is finally done. He surveys the now empty alley, where only his horse remains, quietly waiting. Taking a moment, he sits down to process the events of the day and analyze what he's learned. He reflects on the fight, realizing he has learned several important facts. First, he now has a new target, the Ebony Syndicate. He had been looking for prey that was stronger than a civilian, but weaker than a true martial artist to gain experience. And now he's found the perfect targets. From this point forward, he will hunt them down one by one. The second thing he learned was a crucial detail about leveling up. He looks at his hands in astonishment. The old scars that once covered them are now completely gone. He realizes that leveling up doesn't just heal recent injuries. It erases every single wound and scar on his entire body, making him physically perfect again. A cold, calculating look appears in his eyes as he grasps the full potential of this ability. He wonders if it could even heal fatal damage to his heart or brain. This means that if he's close to leveling up, he can take on far greater risks in a fight. Finally, there was the third discovery, the light. He remembers the massive pillar of light that erupted from his body the moment he leveled up. While powerful, he instantly recognizes it as a major disadvantage. It wasn't just flashy. It was a beacon that would undoubtedly attract unwanted attention and danger. This is something he must hide at all costs. His methods of killing and his very abilities must remain an absolute secret. After all, a true hunter must appear ordinary, blending in perfectly with their prey. Only when you're completely indistinguishable from the crowd can you become the ultimate predator. He concludes that to avoid the flash of light, he must time his level-ups perfectly, either at the exact moment a hunt ends, or in a secluded place where only his prey can witness it. With his plan formulated, Bong-soo gets to his feet, ready to leave the alley. He grabs the reins of his horse, the early morning light beginning to peek over the rooftops. He takes one last look at the alley, the site of his first significant slaughter in this new world. As he walks away, he thinks about how close he came to danger. If Jang-ho had been just a little stronger, things could have ended very differently. He walks through the awakening city, realizing that his old camouflage of pretending to be a mute is no longer enough to keep him safe. To survive and thrive, he needs to grow stronger and quickly. And the only way to do that is to hunt down and kill more powerful targets, all without revealing his true nature. Just as he's lost in thought, plotting his next moves, a hand suddenly grabs his shoulder. A stern voice cuts through the morning air, asking if he is Sam. Bong-soo turns to find a man with a sharp, intense gaze staring him down. The man gets straight to the point, asking him directly, "Did you kill Makil?" The question hangs in the air, and Bong-soo's hand clenches into a fist, energy crackling around it. He's been found out. Suddenly, a system window popped up, flashing a stark warning. A critical error had occurred. The message updated, specifying the error was within the Murim Online system, but casually suggested there should be no issues with the game. Sam sat alone in the dim light, recalling that this strange error only appeared after he hit level 2. He stared intently at the screen, a chilling thought crossing his mind. He was probably the cause of this glitch. He reasoned that the problem stemmed from a fundamental conflict. His own existence, something that shouldn't be here, operating at the same time as the game system. A faint, twisted smile played on his lips as he covered his mouth. The situation was starting to amuse him. After all, wasn't his very presence in this world the biggest critical error of them all? Thinking it was a bit late to worry about that now, he simply dismissed the error message with a tap of his finger. He pulled up his status window, revealing all the familiar stats from the game: strength, health, agility, and martial arts power. But as he scanned the screen, his eyes widened slightly. Something was different. He realized the stats that were previously displayed, as question marks had now changed into solid gauge bars. He wondered if this was another side effect of the critical error, or perhaps just the system's way of adapting to a reality that couldn't be neatly quantified like a game. Curious, he decided to check his skills next, tapping the button on the holographic interface. A new window materialized before him, displaying a list of passive skills he had seemingly acquired. He read through the first few techniques: slash, stab, all basic attacks. The list continued with block and throw, standard defensive and offensive maneuvers. He recognized them immediately. These were all the common passive skills automatically given to a new character in Murim Online. But as his gaze drifted to the bottom of the list, he paused, a thoughtful expression on his face. There was one skill that didn't belong. His eye began to glow with a faint blue light. The name was Spirit Eye, a technique he had never seen before. Even stranger, it came with no description, leaving him to wonder what kind of skill it was. But he had no time to ponder the question. A new notification flashed urgently before him. The activation conditions for Spirit Eye had been met, and it was casting automatically. The system finally provided an explanation. An enemy with a level difference of 10 or more had entered a 20-meter radius. A countdown began, putting So-Sam on high alert. 19, 18, 17. The numbers ticked down, each one echoing the sound of approaching footsteps. His eyes darted to the glowing screen, his mind racing to process the sudden alert. This was the true function of his new skill. He quickly pieced it together. It was an early warning system for powerful threats. The countdown continued, relentless. 15, 14. With every passing moment, the unknown danger drew closer. The heavy tread of boots stopped right outside his cell as the counter hit 13. So-Sam sat in the darkness, his attention fixed on the door. The countdown dropped to 12. Just outside, a fist clenched, tight with purpose. This visitor wasn't just passing by. As the count hit 11, So-Sam slowly rose to his feet, turning to face the impending arrival. But instead of panic, a calculating look appeared in his eyes. He quickly deduced that this was probably not an enemy. He reasoned that very few would be foolish enough to try and infiltrate the Danri clan's heavily fortified headquarters. Besides, a true assassin would have moved much more quietly. The slow, deliberate footsteps confirmed his suspicion. The person approaching had to be an expert from within the clan itself. He glanced at his status. He was only level 2. Considering the number of lives it took to get there, a 10-level gap represented a massive difference in power. He grimly imagined the mountain of bodies he'd have to stack up to reach level 10 by killing ordinary people. It would take thousands, if not tens of thousands. For high-level martial artists, their strength was a direct reflection of the value of the lives they had crushed to get there. With the countdown nearing its end, he quickly tried to figure out which high-ranking clan member would be coming to see him. 3, 2, 1, the countdown vanished. With a heavy thud, the door to his cell slid open, flooding the room with light and revealing the silhouette of a man. A captain of the Danri clan, Gidihio, stepped into the cell. His sharp, suspicious gaze swept across the room, finally landing on its sole occupant. So-Sam didn't miss a beat. He immediately shrank back, his face twisting into a look of absolute terror as he stared up at the imposing figure. Gidihio loomed over the boy, his expression grim. So-Sam in turn kept up his act, looking up with wide, terrified eyes. He grabbed the boy's shoulder, his voice low and dangerous as he confirmed his identity. "Are you Sasam?" So-Sam flinched violently at the touch, cowering as if he'd been struck. Without wasting a moment, Gidihio cut straight to the chase, his voice sharp with accusation. "Did you kill Makal?" The boy's face became a mask of pure horror, his mouth agape as if he couldn't even comprehend the question. As So-Sam stammered in fake confusion, Gidihio began channeling his internal energy, his hand glowing with a faint blue light. A brilliant blue energy flooded So-Sam's vision as the captain began to probe his body. Gidihio poured his own internal energy directly into So-Sam, a common Murim interrogation technique to detect a martial artist's power. The energy surged through the boy's frail body, searching every meridian and energy point for the slightest trace of training. It scoured his skeletal frame, looking for the telltale signs of a developed inner core that every martial artist possesses. Gidihio focused intently, his senses analyzing the feedback from his probe, but he found nothing. The probe found only emptiness. There was no resistance, no blockage, no sign of any cultivated energy whatsoever. It was like pouring water into a bottomless pit. The boy's body was completely hollow. This was the crucial difference. So-Sam didn't cultivate internal energy like a Murim warrior. He relied on a game-like system, leaving no trace for traditional methods to detect. The test was over. Gidihio slowly removed his hand from the boy's shoulder. So-Sam gasped for breath, looking up with wide, innocent eyes, as if he'd just survived a terrifying ordeal. Gidihio let out a thoughtful hum. The results were clear. There was no way this frail, empty child could be a martial artist, let alone a killer. His suspicions seemingly put to rest, the captain turned to his subordinate. "Let's go," he commanded, leaving the boy cowering by the wall. Though clearly confused by the abrupt end to the interrogation, the guard quickly responded, "Yes, Captain." As the sound of their footsteps faded, So-Sam remained perfectly still, holding his terrified posture until he was certain he was alone. Then once they were gone, the pathetic, terrified act dropped completely. In the suffocating darkness of the cell, the only thing visible were his eyes, glowing a deep, menacing red. The predator was back. Outside, the guard questioned his captain's decision, wondering why he'd left so quickly without a proper interrogation, especially since he'd been so suspicious of the boy. Gidihio calmly admitted that he was indeed suspicious. He explained that his suspicions were precisely why he injected his internal energy into the boy's body, a method that would have surely revealed any trace of martial arts training. The guard leaned in eagerly, anxious to hear the results of the test. Gidihio's conclusion was simple. The boy was empty, with not even a handful of internal energy. He was just an ordinary person, completely ignorant of martial arts. He stared up at the full moon, his mind still unsettled. If the boy wasn't the killer, did that mean all those people really committed suicide? And if it truly was a plague, he couldn't help but wonder in dread how many more innocent lives would be lost before it finally came to an end. But contrary to Gidihio's worries that night, the so-called suicide plague vanished from Bongyang completely. It was replaced by something far more violent, as a new wind of slaughter began to blow through the city. One rainy night, the storm raged on. The city streets were slick with rain, the usual hustle and bustle replaced by an eerie quiet. But one inn remained brightly lit, a beacon of warmth against the dark, stormy night. Inside, patrons huddled together, seeking refuge from the downpour and sharing food, drinks, and stories. One man slammed his drink down, the alcohol spilling over the sides. He drunkenly pounded the table, grabbing the attention of those around him. Leaning over to his friend, he whispered loudly, asking if he'd heard the latest story going around town. His companion scoffed, already knowing what he was talking about. It was the story of the Nameless Swordsman, a tale that was on everyone's lips these days. The drunken man slammed his cup down again, slurring as he insisted his friend show proper respect. It wasn't just the Nameless Swordsman. It was the great Nameless Swordsman. He cheered loudly, celebrating the fact that this mysterious swordsman was out there killing the hated thugs from the Ebony Syndicate. His friend frantically tried to quiet him down, worried that someone from the syndicate might overhear them. But the drunken man didn't care. He laughed, boasting that among the syndicate's so-called mighty groups, the White Tiger Unit and the Red Wolf sect had already been wiped out. His more sober companion nervously shushed him, reminding him that one group was still left. If anyone from the Black Snake Society heard him, it wouldn't end well. Unfazed, the man boldly declared that their time was coming soon, too. He was confident that the great Nameless Swordsman was on his way to crush them next. Unseen by the rowdy patrons, a cloaked figure sat in the corner of the inn, quietly listening to the rumors. Having heard enough, the figure stood up and walked out of the inn, stepping back into the cold, driving rain. It was So-Sam, now cloaked and transformed into the very Nameless Swordsman the townspeople were talking about. His footsteps were silent as he moved through the rain-soaked streets, his destination clear. He soon arrived at an alley where a beggar was sitting, trying to find shelter from the storm. So-Sam approached the beggar, his presence casting a dark shadow over the alley. As lightning flashed across the sky, So-Sam leaped over the rooftops, moving like a phantom toward his true target, the headquarters of the Black Snake Society. On a dark and stormy night, a lone guard stands watch at the imposing gates of the Black Snake Society's headquarters. But the guard isn't watching anything. He's fast asleep, completely unaware of the pouring rain or his duty. Suddenly, a sharp blow to the head jolts him awake. Another guard appears, furious that his partner was sleeping on the job. The sleeping guard can only stammer out an apology. The senior guard tells him to get it together, reminding him of the danger they're in. A figure known as the Nameless Hero is on a rampage. He explains with a grim expression that this mysterious warrior has already wiped out 3 of their rival sects, and they're the only ones left. The weight of his words hangs in the air, the fear clear on his face as he sweats in the cold rain. He clenches his eyes shut, trying to steel himself for the inevitable. But just as he's about to scold the other guard again, something flashes past him, and a spray of blood hits his face. He looks over in confusion, only to see his partner's body collapse, a fountain of blood erupting from his neck. A sudden, chilling realization hits him. Just behind him, a shadowy figure with glowing eyes emerges from the darkness. It's the Nameless Swordsman. Before he can even scream, his own head is crushed in an instant. The cloaked swordsman now stands alone before the gate, surrounded by bodies. The first guard's severed head rolls down the stone steps. His victim's face is frozen in a state of pure terror, a silent testament to the speed and brutality of the attack. The swordsman's eyes are cold and sharp, focused only on the path ahead. Without any effort, he pushes the massive, heavy gates open. The lone figure walks into the courtyard, his silhouette a stark contrast against the rain-swept grounds of the manor. He moves with an intimidating calm, like a phantom ready to claim every soul within these walls. The ambush is sprung. From the shadows, a hail of arrows is unleashed, aimed directly at the intruder. But the cloaked figure disappears in a flash. The deadly volley finds no target, striking the empty ground instead. The swordsman's red eye glows in the dark, completely unfazed by the ambush. He's exactly where he wants to be. In the blink of an eye, a group of people appeared. It seemed they had been waiting for him all along, a pitfall just waiting for him to stumble in. He stands calmly in a field of arrows that all missed their mark, but this was just the first wave. An entire army of guards stands ready before him as a voice calls out. The head honcho, the leader of the Black Snake sect, steps forward. With a confident smirk, he sneers that he knew this nameless rat would show up eventually. The swordsman says nothing, letting the pouring rain and his intimidating presence answer for him. From the guard's perspective, the lone figure is an omen of death, standing resolute against their entire force. As if commanded by the heavens, lightning flashes across the sky, setting the stage for the slaughter to come. A massive bolt of lightning cracks down, illuminating the battlefield for a split second. Taking this as his cue, the head honcho roars at his men, ordering them to kill the intruder. The army of guards surges forward, a massive wave of bodies and steel charging at the single, cloaked figure. But instead of meeting them head-on, the swordsman leaps into the air and begins to spin, becoming a whirlwind of death. His blade and cloak become a red and black blur, a vortex of destruction in the heart of the enemy formation. The result is a gruesome spectacle of blood and rain, as bodies are flung helplessly into the air by the force of his spin. A system window appears, identifying the devastating skill he's using, sweeping 1,000 armies. The attack unleashes a wave of red energy, cutting a bloody path straight through the charging horde. For the briefest moment, the guards' faces are frozen in pure, unadulterated terror as they realize their fate. He carves through them relentlessly, each movement a stroke of death. He moves like a phantom, a whirlwind of blades and crimson light that leaves nothing but corpses in its wake. The few guards still standing can only watch in horror, cursing as their comrades are slaughtered like cattle. Even when faced with such a bloodbath, instead of retreating, they continued to charge at the Nameless Swordsman, each man driven mad by the desire to be the one who takes his head. He continues his deadly dance, cutting through the disorganized mob that is now more of a danger to itself than to him. His spinning attack sends more bodies flying, a whirlwind of death that no one can approach. The swordsman's blade cleaves through flesh and bone, taking down multiple opponents with a single brutal swing. He moves like a phantom through the rain, his movements traced by the red lines of his victim's blood. He used the disorganized mob as both human shields and makeshift weapons, flinging them around before skewering the entire lot at once with his blade. For a brief moment, it seemed the invincible killer had finally been caught. The two skewered guards used their last ounce of strength to pin down his blade with a powerful body lock. Believing they had trapped the swordsman, the rest of the mob drew their blades and charged, hurling insults at the prey they now deemed a coward. Triumphant, the guard celebrates, thinking he's finally cornered the monster that has been tearing through his comrades. But beneath the shadow of his hat, a chilling smile spreads across the swordsman's face. He was never trapped at all. Attempting to retrieve his weapon to block the strikes, he found it useless. The two thugs were weighing it down, locking the sword firmly in place. Sensing that the moment was ripe, a massive thug charged forward with a manic grin, still under the delusion that the swordsman was bound and ready for the slaughter. Suddenly, a glowing digital window materialized before the swordsman. It's his system inventory. As the dead guard's body slumps to the ground, the swordsman pulls a fresh blade from the portal, ready for the next kill. The guard dies in utter confusion, his last thought a question he'll never get an answer to. How could a blade come from behind? The swordsman watches him fall with cold, indifferent eyes. Another life taken, another obstacle removed. But one man alone could not stand against everyone forever. In a long fight, an opening was bound to appear. Just like that, a blade plunged into his back. Despite a quick series of rolls to gain distance, the crimson stains on the shattered steel were clear evidence of a severe injury. The head honcho, the Black Snake sect leader, loomed over him with a sneer. Casting away the shattered sword, he bragged about being the one to draw first blood. The swordsman gazed down at the fresh wound on his side. Meanwhile, the head honcho mocked him, admitting he had truly believed he was facing some kind of invincible monster. But seeing the swordsman bleed, the leader's confidence soars. He scoffs, declaring that he's just a human after all, and humans can be killed. This realization sends a wave of manic glee through the remaining guards. A human can be killed, and they are more than ready to do the killing. Clutching the cold steel buried in his flank, the swordsman's hand became soaked with his own crimson. But instead of showing pain or weakness, he simply removes his straw hat and lets it drop into a puddle at his feet. This bizarre, calm gesture shatters the leader's confidence. He stares in confusion, wondering what this man is planning. The head honcho asks why he's laughing. The swordsman finally reveals his face. It's a mask of pure ecstatic madness, with wide, glowing red eyes and a grin that splits his face. The wounded human is gone, and only a laughing psychopath remains. A chilling, psychopathic grin spreads across the swordsman's face. His eyes glow with excitement. The hunt has begun. On a dark and stormy night, rain pours down on the stronghold of the Black Snake Society. Inside the fortress walls, the syndicate members hide within a wooden building, waiting for their target. One of the guards starts to panic. The screams from his comrades have stopped, and a terrifying thought hits him. Could they all be wiped out by just one intruder? He desperately tries to justify their actions, remembering their crimes of extortion, human trafficking, and murder as if they were minor offenses. His fear twists into anger as he wonders why they're being targeted when there are so many worse people in the world. Realizing that begging won't work, he comes to a decision. He has to kill this man himself. He knows a back path that leads directly to his leader's main residence, the Paradise Manor. He turns around and yells into the rain, deciding to lure the intruder into a trap. Safely inside the dark building with his men, he feels a surge of confidence. Here in the shadows, they have the advantage. But his confidence vanishes when he spots a lone figure standing calmly in the middle of the courtyard. Filled with panic, he screams the order for his men to attack. At his command, a volley of arrows shoots out from the building, flying through the rain. Dozens of arrows rain down on the spot where the lone figure was standing. The guard peeks out from his cover, nervously asking his men if the intruder is dead. Suddenly, a sickening crunch echoes through the building as one of the archers is violently killed. Before anyone can react, a crimson blur flashes through the room, slaughtering the guards one by one. The guard stands frozen in terror, surrounded by darkness and the sounds of his men being torn apart. A sudden whoosh rips through the air right beside him. He flinches back, his eyes wide with terror. His gaze falls to the scene below, where all of his men now lie dead. The horrifying realization dawns on him. He's the only one left alive. His men slaughtered, the lone surviving guard trembles as he looks at the hole in the wall. He stammers, asking if the figure is the nameless hero from the rumors. He draws his sword, desperately yelling at the dark figure, wanting to know what they did to deserve this fate. But as he stares at the intruder, his defiance melts away, replaced by pure, abject terror. The shadows part to reveal the killer's face. A single glowing red eye stares back, cold and devoid of any human emotion. In his final moments, the guard screams in protest, questioning what right the killer has to judge them. But his words are cut short as his head is sent flying. The killer stands over the now headless corpse, his voice cutting through the rain as he explains that he only wants one thing. And that one thing is their lives. The gates of the Paradise Manor are now guarded by the headless corpses of the men who were supposed to protect it. The entire courtyard has been turned into a graveyard, littered with the bodies of the Black Snake Society members. As the storm rages, a bolt of lightning illuminates the absolute carnage left in the killer's wake. Standing amidst the bodies, So-sam looks toward the main estate. His work here isn't finished yet. With all the small fry out of the way, his gaze hardens. Only one target remains, the leader of the Black Snake sect, Bang Po-yom. His first target had been the White Tiger unit. He reflects that while killing their members helped him level up, it was just the beginning. He knew that even with his newfound power, he was still too weak to take on the Black faction members in a direct fight. So he resorted to guerrilla tactics, luring his targets into traps. Once they were separated from their group, he would ambush them from the shadows. He wasn't above using any method, including arson, to systematically begin his hunt. By the time the leader of the White Tiger unit, the White Tiger himself, finally became alarmed by the threat. It was far too late. He arrived to find more than half of his unit already slaughtered. But in the process, his brutal actions were misinterpreted. The officials and townspeople started hailing him as a hero, giving him the title, the Nameless Swordsman. This new heroic reputation was nothing more than a convenient mask, making it even easier for him to dispose of the unorthodox faction. After finally killing the leader of the White Tiger unit, he successfully reached level 5. This level up came with a reward. He gained his very first active skills. The system granted him Qinggong, a body lightning technique, and the devastating Three Forces sword art. A sinister smile crept across his face. With these new powers, he was finally strong enough to face the Black faction members in a direct confrontation. As his fame spread, children in the streets even started playing games, mimicking the so-called Nameless Swordsman. While the public revered their new hero, he continued his bloody purge in the shadows. The Red Wolf Gate was completely erased from existence. With their demise, only one unorthodox faction remained in the city of Bongyang, the Black Society. A heavy energy pulsed from the Black Society's headquarters, as a lone figure sat waiting in the pouring rain. From a porch overlooking the courtyard, a man calmly watched the storm, as if expecting a visitor. The intricate snake emblem embroidered on his back marked him as the leader of this feared group. This was the final target, the head of the Black Society, Bang Po-yom. In the pouring rain, the swordsman finally arrived, walking up the stone path to the Black Society's main hall. As he approached, a bolt of lightning split the sky, illuminating the scene. There, sitting on the porch, was Bang Po-yom waiting for him. The swordsman kept his head down, his face hidden by his wet hair and the shadows of the storm. Bang Po-yom watched the approaching figure, his expression unreadable, a lifetime of experience etched onto his face. His voice cut through the sound of the rain as he spoke first, asking if this was the infamous Nameless Swordsman. The swordsman stopped, standing silently in the rain without giving an answer. Bang Po-yom scoffed, finding it strange. He mocked him, asking why a supposed man of justice would need to hide his face so completely. The swordsman's reply was simple and chilling, "Because I'm not one." Bang Po-yom's eyes narrowed. If he wasn't a swordsman of justice, then why was he hunting down and killing the unorthodox factions? Suddenly, the swordsman's face twisted into a horrifying, maniacal grin. He let out a deranged laugh, declaring that he was no righteous hero. For the first time, a flicker of surprise crossed Bang Po-yom's face. The surprise quickly turned to amusement. Bang Po-yom erupted in laughter, realizing this man had deceived everyone in the city. But the swordsman corrected him. He hadn't deceived anyone. He claimed the people simply chose to believe in the hero they wanted to see. Now genuinely intrigued, Bang Po-yom called him an interesting man as he reached for the weapon by his side. He drew his sword, declaring that a fight against such a unique opponent meant that even if he were to die, he would have no regrets. His body began to glow with power. Whether he was a hero or not didn't matter. Bang Po-yom roared for him to show him everything he had. In an instant, Bang Po-yom lunged forward, his blade crackling with a powerful blue aura. The swordsman met his charge, leaping into the air as a menacing red energy enveloped his body. The two warriors clashed in the center of the courtyard, their opposing energies erupting in a brilliant flash of light. The battle had begun. Both fighters took their stances, ready to engage in a duel to the death. In the brief moment before the storm of blades, everything seemed to stand still. Then the swordsman lunged, his eyes burning with a wild, red fury as he unleashed his attack. But Bang Po-yum met his gaze without flinching, his own eyes glowing with the cold focus of a seasoned warrior. He raised his sword, effortlessly blocking the frenzied strike. Their blades clashed with tremendous force, sending a shockwave through the rainy courtyard. But as they exchanged blows, Bang Po-yum was faster, his blade slicing across the swordsman's body. The attack drew blood, but Bang Po-yum was surprised. The swordsman didn't even try to dodge it. In that moment of recklessness, Bang Po-yum saw it, a fatal opening. He thrust his blade forward, but the swordsman realized with alarm that his own sword was too short to parry the attack. Unable to defend, he could only watch as the blade came straight for him. With a sickening tear of flesh, Bang Po-yum's sword plunged deep into his shoulder. Blood erupted from the wound as the blade slashed across his arm. The swordsman was thrown back by the powerful strike, his body skidding across the wet stone. He looked down at his shoulder, where the deep gash was now bleeding heavily. A triumphant, manic grin spread across Bang Po-yum's face. He shouted that his suspicion was correct. The swordsman was already injured before this fight even began. Bang Po-yum then unleashed his special technique, his blade transforming into a flexible whip sword. The weapon flew through the air, striking with the unpredictable speed and movement of a viper. The swordsman was immediately put on the defensive, forced to parry a relentless barrage of attacks from the whip sword. He quickly realized Bang Po-yum's cruel strategy. The veteran warrior was deliberately targeting his existing injuries. Gasping for breath and covered in wounds, the swordsman was being completely overwhelmed by the older, more experienced fighter. He admitted to himself that in a fair martial arts duel against a master like Bang Po-yum, he would definitely lose. But the swordsman had no intention of fighting fair. A crazed look entered his eyes. He decided that even if it meant sacrificing his own flesh, he would create an opening. Sensing a change, Bang Po-yum charged forward, mocking him for hesitating in the middle of a death match. The swordsman gathered his energy, seemingly preparing to unleash his three forces sword art as a last resort. A victorious grin spread across Bang Po-yum's face as he lunged in for the final blow, shouting, "Got you!" Suddenly, as if appearing from thin air, a sword as supple as a serpent began to coil around So-sam's arm, leaving him in utter shock. So-sam's eyes widened in sheer horror. The sect leader's blade gradually retracted through his muscles, carving out trails of blood that splattered everywhere. This treacherous weapon left him completely helpless. His severed arm fell, spinning through the air. The master swordsman was completely thrown off, his rhythm shattered by the dishonorable and insane tactic. Drunk on victory, Bang Po-yum started to brag. He admitted with a malicious grin that he never cared for martial arts, because he was a monster through and through. Ignoring the searing pain in his shoulder, the swordsman seized the opportunity he had created. Bang Po-yum looked up in a panic, but it was too late. Using his new skill, King Gong, the swordsman launched himself into the air, moving with impossible speed and lightness. This was the true purpose of his plan. From above, he unleashed his ultimate attack, the second form of the three forces sword art, core striking slash. The devastating blast of energy slammed into Bang Po-yum, engulfing him completely. The swordsman landed heavily, his body battered and bleeding, but he was the one left standing. In the pouring rain, the duel continued. Black, serpent-like energy shot through the air, relentlessly striking at So-sam. But even covered in his own blood, So-sam's eyes gleamed with manic energy. A wild, unhinged grin spread across his face as he reveled in the life-or-death struggle. The whip-like attacks were fast and unpredictable, lashing out from the darkness with deadly precision, intent on tearing him apart. Suddenly, So-sam's wild expression vanished, replaced by a cold, sharp focus. His eyes narrowed as he analyzed his opponent's every move. Then his opponent, Bang Po-yum, unleashed his true power. A massive spectral serpent materialized from his energy, towering over the lone swordsman. Bang Po-yum walked forward, his voice dripping with condescension. He found So-sam's willingness to use his own body as bait peculiar. He declared that this reckless style wasn't that of a martial artist. It was the way of a hunter or even an assassin. So Sam remained silent. In his mind, he had to admit that in a fair fight against a master like this, he would surely lose. Bang Po-yum let out a sinister laugh, his eyes glinting with cruel certainty as he prepared to reveal a painful truth to his opponent. He pointed out that in a life-or-death duel, the more secrets one has, the better. And so Sam's wounds were already exposed for all to see. Bang Po-yum gloated, revealing a monstrous set of snakeskin cloth armor as he declared his absolute superiority. He was convinced that So Sam had run out of tricks, and that this was the brat's fatal flaw. But So Sam wasn't broken. He calmly raised his sword, his expression unreadable, ready for whatever came next. Seeing this, Bang Po-yum mocked him, believing So Sam had run out of options and was simply making a final, desperate stand. As the serpent's coils closed in around him, So Sam stood firm, his gaze locked on his enemy, his blade held steady. With a glare from his glowing yellow eye, Bang Po-yum delivered the final command. Then, die now. The giant energy serpent roared, lunging forward to deliver the killing blow to the one he called a nameless, murderous demon. The massive attack surged through the darkness, an overwhelming force aimed at completely annihilating So Sam. So Sam stood alone in the path of the attack, the immense energy threatening to swallow him whole. But So Sam had no intention of facing the attack head-on. In a swift motion, he twisted and kicked at the ground. A cloud of dirt and debris instantly filled the air. Seeing this, Bang Po-yum scoffed, annoyed at the desperate attempt to block his vision. Enraged, Bang Po-yum roared that such a simple trick was futile against him. He was a master, and a little dust wouldn't save his opponent. His spiritual serpent whipped through the dust cloud, instantly locking onto what he believed was So Sam's position. The whip sword shot forward like a spear, striking its target with a sickening thud. A triumphant, vicious smile spread across Bang Po-yum's face as he felt his blade connect. "Ha! I finally caught you," he snarled. But as the dust settled, his eyes widened. The figure he'd impaled, it wasn't the swordsman, wait, that's. He stared in horror. His blade had pierced the chest of one of his own Black Society subordinates. So Sam had used a corpse as a shield. It was a decoy. A cold dread washed over him as he realized his fatal mistake. If that was the decoy, then the real one was. Right above his head, So Sam had seized that moment of shock, appearing with his blade poised for a decisive strike. A system window appeared before So Sam's eyes as he activated his new skill, the Three Forces Sword Art, second form. Bang Po-yum could only watch in terror as So Sam unleashed the ultimate technique, the core striking slash. In a flash of light, the blade struck true, tearing through Bang Po-yum's defenses with unstoppable force. Blood splattered. At the last possible second, Bang Po-yum had managed to get his hand in the way of the blade. The sword plunged into his chest, stopped only partially by his desperate attempt to shield his heart. An agonizing scream ripped from Bang Po-yum's throat as the sword's energy ravaged his body. So Sam watched, a flicker of surprise in his eyes. He noted that even in that split second, the old master had the instincts to block the sword with his hand to save his heart. But Bang Po-yum wasn't ready to die. With what little strength he had left, he roared, "Not yet, it's not over yet." In a desperate bid to escape, his whip sword slithered and lunged back toward its master, attempting to intercept the danger and save him. The whip sword whistled through the air, streaking directly toward So Sam's face. The old man's gamble paid off instantly. Forced to retreat, the gap between him and death finally widened. In terms of pure insanity, the sect leader was easily a match for So Sam. He grabbed the sharp blade with his bare hand, his voice dripping with madness. "Where do you think you're going? I won't let you fucking escape." Yet there wasn't a trace of fear on So Sam's face. With cold composure, he summoned a blue screen that materialized in midair. It was his inventory. From the glowing inventory screen, the bodies of the men So Sam had killed began to pour out, a grotesque and shocking sight. Bang Po-yum could only scream in utter disbelief, as a vortex of his own dead subordinates erupted from this impossible space. The torrent of corpses slammed into him, a disgusting wave of death that sent him spiraling to the ground, his mind completely broken. He fell amidst the bodies of his fallen comrades, his spirit finally shattered. Coughing up blood, Bang Po-yum's mind raced. To think his opponent could make corpses appear from thin air, it meant he had even more unthinkable tactics hidden away. He looked out at his now silent courtyard, littered with the bodies of his followers. It was a scene of utter defeat. The rain fell on the faces of the dead, a quiet testament to the massacre that had just occurred. A surge of pure rage brought Bang Po-yum back to his senses. He gritted his teeth, refusing to accept this reality. Struggling to his feet, he screamed into the night, demanding to know where the cowardly rat had run off to. His rage turned to maddened ranting. To use corpses in a fight, it was unthinkable. He screamed that So-Sam was nothing but a lunatic. Suddenly, a sharp object flew through the air, aimed directly at his head. Even in his weakened state, his instincts took over. With a grunt, he deflected the projectile with his whip sword. Enraged by the constant psychological attacks, Bang Po-yum roared for an end to these dishonorable, dirty tricks. But the moment the words left his mouth, another arrow whistled toward his face. His eyes darted in sheer shock as he struggled to react. The arrow pierced straight through his face. He staggered back, that minor wound bringing with it the stinging sensation of a humiliating defeat. He had been played like a fool from the very beginning. A horrifying thought began to form in his mind. In this situation, was it possible that he, the great hunter of the Black Society, was now the prey? In his eyes, So-Sam was no longer a man, but a monstrous predatory beast, and he was the one trapped in its sights. Absolute terror finally consumed him. How could this be happening? To him, Bang Po-yum, the master of the Black Society, reduced to a cornered animal. Struggling to regain his composure, he frantically scanned the area, his eyes searching wildly for his opponent. In his desperate search, he struck out manically at the empty air, aiming for shadows he believed were his foe. With a face contorted by madness, he roared, "Where are you hiding?" So-Sam remained hidden in the shadows, but he didn't attack with his sword. Instead, he used another corpse as a decoy, toying with the sect leader whose sanity was rapidly slipping away. A flash of understanding and horror crossed Bang Po-yum's face. He realized in that split second that So-Sam was using yet another one of his dead men as a weapon. No honor, no technique, only the bone-chilling sounds of flesh being torn apart, a human body used as a tool to grind down the enemy's sanity. His eyes went wide with agony and shock. A final, silent scream locked on his face as his life came to a disgusting end. So-Sam drove his sword straight through the corpse and into Bang Po-yum's heart, ending the fight with the most dishonorable method imaginable. Bang Po-yum slumped forward dead, pinned by his own subordinate, defeated by a psychopath who refused to play by any rules. So-Sam emotionlessly pulled his sword free, leaving the sect leader to stagger aimlessly across the rain-soaked ground. The gaping wound in his chest was proof of the absolute brutality of the final blow. With his last breath, Bang Po-yum acknowledged the horrifying truth. This single boy had successfully annihilated every last member of his Black Society in the entire city. As So-Sam loomed over him like a specter, the dying man used his final moment to ask the one question that remained. Why? So-Sam looked down, his eyes devoid of any emotion. He gave a chillingly simple response. Do I need a reason? He then began to explain his twisted worldview. In his eyes, humans have always killed other humans. It's in their nature. From the dawn of time, when they were no more than apes, they fought and killed for dominance. And even now, after building sprawling civilizations and shining cities, that fundamental truth hasn't changed. So he asked, why should this place be any different? It's the unchanging law of the world. The strong always trample upon and steal from the weak. Leaning in close, So-Sam delivered his final, cold verdict to the dying man. This time I was simply the strong one. In his final moment, the light faded from Bang Po-yum's eye. He finally understood. He wasn't killed by a martial artist. He was devoured by a predator. The rain stopped. The clouds parted, revealing a full moon. The battle for Bongyang was over. Silence fell over the Black Society's headquarters, now a tomb for its former masters. And then a brilliant pillar of light erupted from the compound, shooting into the heavens. So-Sam had leveled up. His work finished, So-Sam turned and walked away from the carnage without a second glance. He calmly wiped the blood of the Black Society from his sword, his expression unreadable under his mask. Splattered in blood but standing tall, he had single-handedly conquered the entire city's underworld. With the death of every Black Society member in Bongyang, he thought to himself, his preparations were now complete. It was time to move on to the next stage, a bigger stage where the storms were fiercer. A stage where the strong were even stronger, and the prey would be much harder and more thrilling to hunt. A wide, terrifying grin spread across his face as he made his declaration to the world. Let's go to the Murims, Jianghu. And so the psychopath left the small town behind, eager to enter the chaotic, storm-tossed world of martial arts masters. Meanwhile, in a fortress hidden deep within the stormy mountains, a new power was stirring. Inside a vast, red-lit hall, Scores of warriors knelt in silence, awaiting orders from their master. At the end of the hall, a mysterious, imposing leader sat upon a throne, his entire figure shrouded in shadow. His powerful voice echoed through the silent hall, posing a single, ominous question. How long is it until the Orthodox demonic war? A lone figure at the front, Gwangwon, answered without looking up. 2 years remain. The mysterious leader considered this. 2 years. He decided it was time to slowly begin the grand plan and called his subordinate by name, Gwangwon. Gwangwon bowed his head completely to the floor, shouting his affirmative, ready to receive his orders. From the throne, the shadowy leader gave his command, one that would set the world on a new, violent course. Execute the first stratagem. The words hung in the air, a promise of the chaos to come. Gwangwon accepted the order without hesitation. As you command. A new day begins under a clear, bright sky. In the town of Bongyang, the streets are bustling with activity once again. A man with messy black hair, So-sam, makes his way through the town, leading a horse with a blank expression on his face. As he passes by, a group of men are gathered, their conversation just getting started. Unaware that the very man they're discussing is walking right behind them, the townsfolk excitedly share the news. The Nameless Swordsman has finally wiped out the entire black society. One man enthusiastically suggests they should stop calling him the Nameless Swordsman and start calling him the Nameless Righteous Swordsman. But not everyone is so quick to celebrate. Another man, arms crossed, voices his uncertainty about the whole situation. He questions if it's truly okay for a so-called hero to go around killing people, regardless of who they are. His friend immediately slams the table, angrily telling him to watch his mouth and remember all the evil deeds the black society had committed. He gets more and more furious, shouting that even chewing them up alive wouldn't be enough punishment. In his eyes, they absolutely deserved to die. The doubtful man, however, remains unconvinced, trailing off with a simple, but still. The third man in their group chimes in, reminding them that neither the government nor the orthodox factions ever cared about commoners like them. He leans in, making his point with a firm voice. In the end, the Nameless Swordsman was the only one who ever stepped up to protect them. The doubtful man listens, his expression thoughtful as he processes his friend's words. He lets out a heavy sigh, his internal conflict visible on his face. Finally, he relents. Looking up, he concedes that his friends are right, wondering aloud who else would have stood up for them if not for the swordsman. With the debate settled, a sense of agreement falls over the table. Suddenly, the man who first defended the swordsman jumps to his feet, cheering at the top of his lungs. Long live the Nameless Swordsman! His sudden outburst catches the others by surprise, but their shock quickly turns into shared enthusiasm. Soon the cheer spreads like wildfire. As So-sam walks away, the entire town erupts in praise for the hero they believe saved them, chanting, "Long live the swordsman!" The townspeople continue to celebrate wildly, completely captivated by their new hero. But as the crowd cheers, So-sam remains completely unfazed by their adoration, his horse startled by the noise. To him, this was just a hunting ground that has now run dry. He looks on with cold, empty eyes, thinking to himself that it's about time he left this place. Later that night, at the magnificent estate of the Danri clan, So-sam stands with his horse outside the stables, his duties as a simple groom providing the perfect cover. Suddenly, a system notification flashes before his eyes. An enemy with a level difference of 10 or more is just 20 meters away. His eyes glow red as his spirit eye ability activates, sensing the overwhelming presence. He realizes the powerful aura is coming from inside the very stable he's guarding. Playing the part of a lowly stable hand, he nervously enters the building. Inside, two figures are deep in conversation, their presence filling the room with a heavy tension. So-sam immediately recognizes one of them, Gi Dihyo, the formidable leader of the Black Crow unit. But the man next to him is on another level entirely. It's the head of the Danri clan, known as the Flying Heavenly Demon Sword. So-sam's eyes narrow as he identifies the clan's patriarch, Danri Wu. The old man's face is a mask of pure authority and power. Instantly, So-sam drops to the ground, trembling and pretending to be terrified. He wonders what could possibly bring such powerful men to a humble stable. Danri Wu gently strokes the horse, telling the animal it's time for them to part ways. From his position on the floor, So-sam's red eyes watch everything, analyzing the situation from behind his disguise of fear. An immense pressure suddenly radiates from the patriarch. a wave of killing intent that seems to physically press down on the room. Breaking the silence, Danri Chun-woo announces that on the next full moon, the second daughter of the prestigious Namgung clan head will be getting married. Gi Dihyo looks surprised, questioning why they would send the patriarch's most cherished horse as a mere congratulatory gift. Danri Chun-woo scoffs, revealing his true intentions. He's willing to give up anything as long as he can send one of his children to the prestigious Namgung clan. His eyes glint with ambition. For a chance to ally with one of the 5 great clans, he would do even more than this. Gi Dihyo asks if the goal is a marriage pledge, but the patriarch cuts him off, reminding him that he mentioned his children, plural. He strokes the horse, speaking in metaphors. It's always easier to cross a stream by laying down 2 logs rather than 1. Gi Dihyo points out the obvious flaw. The Namgung clan might not want either of them. The patriarch just laughs, reminding Gi Dihyo that ensuring their acceptance is precisely why he was summoned. His demeanor turns icy as he gives his final order. He doesn't care what methods are used. Gi Dihyo must make it happen, no matter what. Gi Dihyo feels the immense pressure of the command, his face contorting with shock and determination. Forced to comply, he bows his head and accepts the mission. The patriarch then tells him to depart tomorrow before adding one last instruction. He gestures to the still prostrated So-sam, ordering Gi Dihyo to take the boy along since he's needed to handle the horse. "Yes, patriarch," Gi Dihyo shouts, as the old man turns and walks away, his orders delivered. Once the patriarch is gone, Gi Dihyo turns to So-sam, who continues to tremble on the ground, playing his part perfectly. The unit leader gives the stable boy a long, hard look, sizing him up before the journey ahead. The next morning, the Black Crow unit assembles in front of the main hall, ready to depart on their critical mission. While the warriors prepare, So-sam stands alone, his mind already racing with plans. This mission is his ticket to a bigger stage. He knows he needs to find a way to learn proper martial arts, not just the system skills he's acquired. To him, the Namgung clan represents a hunting ground filled with powerful new prey. He tried to learn before, observing the movements of the Danri warriors and the black unit leaders. But as he visualized their techniques, he knew it was just a pale imitation of the real thing. He clenches his fist in frustration, understanding that what he'd been doing was nothing more than a shallow copy. He considers his options. Finding a lost secret manual is a possibility, but it's unreliable and risky. No, the best and most certain path to true power is to learn directly from a master, and this mission is his chance to find one. He knows becoming a disciple won't be easy. He's already 18 in this world, and he's heard that it's difficult to start learning martial arts at such an age. Still, a small smile plays on his lips. As it turns out, the situation couldn't have worked out better for him. Before him lies the path to the Namgung clan, one of the 5 great powers of the Central Plains. A wicked grin spreads across his face. He's certain that within the powerful clan, he'll find not only a way to learn, but also much stronger prey. One of the unit commanders announces that the entire Black Crow unit has assembled and is ready to move out. The massive procession begins to move, with So-sam blending in seamlessly among the soldiers, just another face in the crowd. Gi Dihyo, mounted on his horse, takes a head count, nodding that only the young master and young lady are missing. He grits his teeth in frustration, already knowing where the problem lies. He mutters to himself that Danri Ganghee is probably drunk in a tavern somewhere, and his sister will likely join them later, as she hates traveling with subordinates. Not willing to wait any longer, he gives the command, and the massive unit begins to move out. The procession leaves the estate, a long line of soldiers and carts making their way through the city streets. But just as they're getting started, Gi Dihyo abruptly raises his hand, shouting for everyone to halt. A loud crashing sound echoes from a nearby building, drawing everyone's attention. Gi Dihyo slaps his forehead in exasperation, sighing, "Ha, again." He knows exactly who's causing the trouble. The source of the commotion is none other than Danri Ganghee, the eldest son of the patriarch, a man said to be a martial arts prodigy. In terms of pure skill, he has what it takes to join the Namgung clan as a disciple. But as Gi Dihyo knows all too well, the young master's biggest problem is his character. He's a frivolous degenerate, fond of alcohol and women, a lifestyle that has earned him a terrible reputation that follows him everywhere. As the Danri clan prepares to depart, a bystander mutters in disgust. It seems the clan's young master is causing trouble again. Suddenly, a flash of violent green energy erupts from a nearby building. The commander of the Black Crow unit, Gi Dihyo, whips his head around, his eyes wide with disbelief at the sudden commotion. His shock turns to horror as he sees his young master, Danri, sent flying through a wall, pinned by an unseen force. Watching from the sidelines is a young man with messy black hair named So-Sam. His special ability activates, sensing a presence nearby. A system window pops up, delivering a chilling warning. An enemy with a level difference of 10 or more has just appeared within 20 meters. The battered young master Danri points a shaky finger, screaming curses at his unknown attacker. But before he can even finish his threat, he's silenced by another brutal strike. Seeing his master assaulted, Gi Dihyo roars in fury, his entire unit looking on in shock. So-Sam, however, just watches with a twisted grin. His eyes glow red as he analyzes the incredible power on display. His Spirit Eye ability gives him a clear reading on the attacker. This isn't just some brawler, this is a true master. An old man with wild, spiky hair emerges, crackling with an overwhelming green aura. He is Tang Wu, the soul-chasing poison hand, a legendary figure of immense power. Without a word, Tang Wu unleashes his power on the young master. The sheer force of the blow sends shockwaves through the area. Unable to stand by any longer, Gi Dihyo rushes forward, shouting at the old man to stop. Tang Wu pauses, turning his head with a look of cold annoyance. He glares at Gi Dihyo, demanding to know who dares to interrupt him. The rest of the unit can only watch in terror as Tang Wu stands over their fallen master, his power leaving them completely paralyzed. Stepping forward, the commander introduces himself formally. He is Gi Dihyo, the head of the Danri clan's elite Black Crow unit. He reveals the victim's identity, announcing that Tang Wu is attacking the young master of the powerful Danri clan. Placing a hand on his sword, Gi Dihyo issues a stern ultimatum: remove his foot from the young master or face the consequences. But Gi Dihyo stands his ground, his loyal Black Crow unit right behind him, ready to fight. So-Sam watches the confrontation unfold, a cold realization dawning on him. The commander has no idea who he's dealing with. He reasons that for a man to be unknown even to the well-informed leader of the Black Crow unit, he must be an outsider, an unfathomable master from beyond their region. A chilling thought crosses his mind. With their current strength, they have absolutely no chance of defeating this man. In that instant, Tang Wu's eyes snapped wide open. With that single movement, he released a terrifying gravitational pressure that suppressed everyone around him. But So-Sam calmly assesses the situation. A lion doesn't use its full strength to kill a mere bug. As long as they don't prove to be a real threat, they might just survive this encounter. Tang Wu, however, seems completely unimpressed by the threat. He casually picks his ear and mockingly asks what the Danri clan even is. He continued to mock them, asking with a ridiculous smirk if this Danri clan was something one could actually eat. The blatant disrespect sends Gi Dihyo into a rage. He screams, questioning how the old man dares to insult his clan. A sinister glint appears in Tang Wu's eyes as he continues his psychological torment. With a wicked grin, he clarifies his question. He doesn't know if the Danri clan is something to eat or simply something to be stepped on, like the young master beneath his foot. That was the last straw. Gi Dihyo grits his teeth, his patience completely gone. In a flash, he unsheathes his sword, his eyes glowing with killing intent. He's decided to fight. Pushing aside his fear, he rallies his men, giving the final order to charge forward and save the young master at all costs. The entire Black Crow unit follows their commander's lead, rushing towards the seemingly invincible old man. In response to the charging army, Tang Wu simply raises his hand, forming a peculiar sign. A terrifying green energy begins to crackle and gather around his fingers. The energy concentrates into a blindingly bright point of light. Then he unleashes the attack, a devastating wave of green light that streaks across the battlefield towards the charging soldiers. Gi Dihyo, at the head of the charge, can only watch in horror as the lethal energy flies straight at him. In an instant, the battlefield is thrown into chaos. Soldiers are blasted into the air. Gi Dihyo himself is caught in the attack, a horrible realization dawning on him as he recognizes the technique. The green energy strikes him, and he lets out a silent scream as his consciousness fades. With one move, the entire elite unit is wiped out. Tang Wu stands alone amidst the fallen bodies, the sole victor. Gi Dihyo now knows the name of this legendary technique, the soul-chasing flying butterfly. Lying on the ground, defeated, Gi Dihyo looks up at the old man in pure terror, finally understanding who he is. Tang Wu sneers, impressed that a lowly country laborer like him has eyes sharp enough to recognize his true identity. He confirms the commander's fears. He is none other than the infamous soul-chasing poison hand, Tang Wu. His name carries immense weight, for he belongs to the 20 strongest people in the entire Murim world, a hierarchy topped by the 2 legendary gods. Beneath them are the 3 monsters, beings of unimaginable power, followed by the 5 pinnacles, masters who stand at the peak of the martial world. And finally, there are the 10 greats, a group of supreme masters to which Tang Wu belongs. He is the supreme master of the Sichuan Tang clan, a living legend standing before them. His title is a terrifying one. It is said that those who offend him cannot escape his poisonous wrath, even in death. So Sam, standing untouched amidst the carnage, calmly processes this information. He's face to face with one of the top 20 masters of the Murim. He understands immediately. The fool from the Danri clan has just started a massive incident by provoking such a monster. The consequences will be severe. An offense against a master of Tang Wu's stature could very well lead to the complete destruction of the Danri clan. So Sam watches with morbid curiosity, wondering just how this disaster will play out. Just then, a woman named HWA appears, calling out to her grandfather, Tang Wu. She dismisses the entire affair, telling him to leave the ignorant country folk alone and just go. But Tang Wu doesn't move. He stops, his gaze fixed on something, or someone, in the crowd. A wide, eerie smile spreads across his face. He's found something far more interesting than the riffraff he just dispatched. HWA seems to believe the lesson is over, remarking that this should be enough of a beating to teach the young master his place. Tang Wu grumbles, disgusted that a supposed descendant of the righteous Orthodox faction would be drunk and causing trouble first thing in the morning. He states that while he'd love to deliver a harsher punishment, he's showing restraint. He leaves a final warning. If the young master continues harassing women, his life will be cut short. He turns to the barely conscious commander on the ground and asks if he understands the message. Terrified, Gi Dihyo can only stammer out a thank you to the master for his mercy. The display of thanks only seemed to please him further. With a swift wave of his arm, a surging tide of power manifested from his fingertips. He unleashed a wave of energy, linking and drawing back the needles that had just struck down the commander and his men, sending them whistling back to his hand. In an instant, every single needle was tethered to threads of energy and began to be steadily drawn back. With the commotion settled, Tang Wu finally decides it's time to leave. He turns to his granddaughter, ready to depart, but then stops dead in his tracks, clenching his fist. His eye widens, the pupils swirling with intense focus. Something has caught his attention. Amidst the sea of defeated warriors, one person is still standing, completely unfazed. So Sam himself looks bewildered, as if he's only just realized that he is the only one left standing. The master's piercing green gaze locks onto its target. And so Sam's cold, emotionless eyes stare right back. Tang Wu tells his confused granddaughter to wait for him. He's not leaving just yet. Ignoring everyone else, the legendary master begins to walk slowly and deliberately down the path of bodies, straight towards So Sam. So Sam's mind races. A wave of panic hits him as he realizes the apex predator is coming directly for him. As Tang Wu's feet come to a stop right in front of him, So Sam can only wonder, why? The two stand face to face. The frail stable boy and the legendary master of the Murim, locked in a silent, tense confrontation. From the background, HWA calls out, asking her grandfather what he's doing. Tang Wu dismisses her, saying he just has a simple question for the boy. So Sam is in disbelief. Why would a supreme master, one of the 10 greats, have any business with a lowly stable boy like him? Tang Wu's eyes, like swirling green vortexes, stare deep into So Sam's soul as he asks a simple yet terrifying question. What is your name? So Sam is frozen, his mind completely blank. Under the crushing weight of the master's presence, he can't utter a single word. Losing his patience, Tang Wu's demonic aura flares. His eyes glow with menacing green light as he repeats his demand, his voice dripping with killing intent. With glowing green eyes, the legendary master Tang Wu stared down at the boy, his voice low and demanding as he asked for his name. So Sam froze, his eyes wide with shock under the immense pressure of the master's presence. A strange, hypnotic energy swirled within Tang Wu's eyes, as if he was peering directly into So Sam's very soul. The boy's continued silence only seemed to annoy the old master, who muttered in frustration. Just then, another man stepped forward to explain the situation, informing Tang Wu that the horse handler was unable to speak. Tang Wu's aggressive expression faltered for a moment, surprised to hear that the boy was a mute. This new piece of information seemed to intrigue him, and he continued to scrutinize So-sam with a thoughtful gaze. So-sam remained perfectly still, enduring the powerful master's intense stare without a word. As he stood before the immense presence, a realization dawned on So-sam. This wasn't just an interrogation, he was being evaluated. But the master's gaze didn't feel hostile. In fact, So-sam felt as though he was being examined like a rare and precious treasure. His mind raced. If a master of Tang Wu's caliber was looking at him with such interest, then this was the opportunity he had been waiting for. A chance to finally break free from his current life and shed the lowly identity of So-sam the horse handler once and for all. Without warning, Tang Wu lunged forward and grabbed So-sam's wrist, channeling a powerful green energy into him. The energy surged through So-sam's meridians, testing the limits of his physical vessel. Whatever Tang Wu discovered sent him into a fit of crazed laughter, his excitement echoing through the courtyard. In that moment, a massive dark power awakened within So-sam, swirling like a storm waiting to be unleashed. Rewinding to just a few moments before, Tang Wu had approached the man in charge, asking about their trip to the Namgung clan for a marriage alliance. His attention then shifted to So-sam. When Tang Wu asked what the boy did, the man simply explained that he was the handler for the Fergana horse they were giving as a gift. With a grin, Tang Wu casually suggested he should just take the boy. The Danri clan's representative immediately panicked, protesting that without So-sam, there was no one left who could control the prized Fergana horse. Tang Wu paused to think, brushing off the man's concerns. He reasoned that all they really needed to do was get the horse to the Namgung clan's estate. He then made his decision clear. Once they arrived, he would take the boy. As for the politics of it, he would handle the Namgung clan personally. To seal the deal, Tang Wu offered to write a letter to the Danri clan's head and even include payment for the boy. With a condescending tone, he asked if that was sufficient. The representative was completely cornered, stammering with a terrified look on his face, unable to find the words to refuse such a powerful figure. A flash of Tang Wu's terrifying, inhuman eye was all it took to silence any further protest. Defeated, the man bowed his head in submission. He quickly tried to save face, claiming they had intended to present the boy to the Namgung clan anyway, and formally offered him to Tang Wu. Tang Wu let out a booming laugh, pleased with the outcome. So-sam watched silently from the side as the exchange concluded. With a sharp, predatory grin, Tang Wu turned and barked at So-sam to hurry up and follow him. So-sam stood with the horse, now separated from the Danri clan's forces, who could only watch as their handler was taken. The representative clutched his head, sighing in utter frustration at having been so easily overpowered and losing a valuable asset. He turned to his troops and yelled, ordering them to get their injured young master to a physician immediately while the rest of the unit prepared to move out. So-sam glanced over, his expression unreadable as he stood beside the Fergana horse, taking in the scene. The representative watched with a grimace as his wounded young master was carried away, a stark reminder of the power gap between his clan and a true monster like Tang Wu. Tang Wu flashed a sinister, triumphant smile, looking like a demon who had just claimed a new soul. As day turned to night, a full moon rose in the sky. The large procession of warriors arrived at a brightly lit inn to rest for the evening. With a wave of his hand, the Danri representative announced to the entire group that they would be staying there for the night. The inn was bustling with activity, filled with travelers and martial artists eating and drinking after a long day's journey. Away from the lively main building, the quiet and empty stables stood waiting. Later that night, So-sam sat alone in the quiet stables, the prized Fergana horse watching over him as he gathered his thoughts. He reflected on his own power, realizing that ever since his fight with the Black Snake Society, his control over his inventory had improved significantly. He could now summon items within a 1-meter radius, and he wondered if more practice could extend that range even further. Through this ability, he could retrieve anything he had stored, from simple swords to entire corpses. Not only could he retrieve them, but he could also project them outwards, turning his stored items into makeshift projectiles. However, he knew there was a flaw. The projection speed was still too slow, and any true master would be able to react in time. He began to experiment, pulling a stream of what looked like sand from his inventory into his open palm. His eye glowed red as he focused intently on the new application of his power. With a single word, he activated his ability, and the sand in his lap began to dematerialize. It vanished in a brilliant flash of blue light, returning to its storage space in an instant. He stared at his fist, a flicker of realization in his eyes as a new idea began to form. Opening his palm, he watched it glow with the system's light, confirming his suspicion. A smirk crept across his face as he realized he had gotten quite good at manipulating the inventory's core functions. But his mind was already racing ahead. A manic grin spread across his face as he realized there was yet another way to utilize this power. He pressed his glowing hand directly against his own body, testing his new theory. The familiar blue light of the inventory system activated, confirming his hypothesis. He had discovered a groundbreaking new technique. Anything that entered his physical body could be directly transferred into the inventory. With a crazed look of revelation, he gave his discovery a fitting name. This wasn't just a system function, it was a martial technique, the inventory divine art. Just as he was reveling in his breakthrough, the sound of approaching footsteps echoed from outside the stable, breaking his concentration. An annoyed female voice cut through the silence, complaining about her grandfather as she walked towards him. It was Tang Wu's granddaughter, HWA. With her arms crossed, she looked So-Sam up and down with disdain, openly wondering why her grandfather would summon a lowly stable hand at this hour. Despite her clear annoyance, she gave him a curt order to follow her. So-Sam simply stared back, his expression unreadable as he rose to his feet. He followed her through the main hall of the inn, where the remaining members of the Danri clan watched them pass with suspicion. HWA led him to a large, private chamber, announcing their arrival before entering. The heavy doors slid open, revealing a brightly lit room beyond. Inside, Tang Wu was kneeling alone before a magnificent mural of a golden dragon that dominated the entire wall. Without turning around, the old master ordered So-Sam to go to the platform in front of him and sit cross-legged. So-Sam's eyes narrowed slightly as he processed the strange command. He walked past Tang Wu and HWA, who were both now kneeling on the floor, and made his way to the designated spot. He obeyed without question, settling into a cross-legged position on the platform directly beneath the gaze of the golden dragon. Tang Wu's sharp, predatory eye stared him down as he gave a single, blunt order: strip. As So-Sam began to remove his robe without a word, Tang Wu clarified his command: everything. Once So-Sam was completely unclothed, Tang Wu let out a quiet, satisfied good. He grinned with a sinister delight, noting that So-Sam's muscular build was surprisingly good, far from the frail body his loose clothes suggested. Then Tang Wu produced an ornate golden case, revealing the treasure within. These were the legendary Dragon Phoenix golden needles. HWA gasped in horror, finally realizing what her grandfather intended to do. Tang Wu ignored her, placing the case firmly on the floor before him. He turned his attention back to So-Sam and asked if he was familiar with the old saying, "Jayal HWA Wiji." He then explained the proverb: an orange tree will bear sweet fruit in its native southern soil, but if moved to the cold north, it will only produce bitter, inedible fruit. So-Sam's eye widened, the meaning was clear. He was the orange, meant to grow into something special, but in the barren soil of the Danri clan. He was being stifled. The Tang clan, however, could provide the right environment for his potential to flourish. In his current state, he was merely So-Sam, but after this transformation, he would become something far greater. Tang Wu then revealed his intentions. He was going to perform a great ritual on So-Sam, one that would be so agonizing it would make him wish for death. But the reward for enduring this torment would be immense. Not only would his muteness be cured, but he would be granted a gift beyond his imagination. With a gaze as intense as a roaring beast, Tang Wu asked the question that would change So-Sam's life forever: will you do it? So-Sam stared back, the golden light reflecting in his wide, unblinking eyes as he considered the offer. Unable to contain her shock, HWA cried out, grabbing her grandfather's arm in protest. She couldn't believe he would make such a monumental decision, without consulting the clan elders first. A dark shadow fell over Tang Wu's face as he turned to his granddaughter, his glowing eye promising severe punishment if she interfered. With a snarl, he dismissed her concerns, reminding her that his word was absolute. HWA gasped, recoiling from his sharp tone and palpable anger. Ignoring her completely, Tang Wu let out a quiet, menacing chuckle. His amusement quickly turned into a booming, maniacal laugh that filled the entire room. A single bead of sweat, born of fear and frustration, rolled down Hwa's cheek as she realized she was utterly powerless to stop him. From his platform, So-Sam watched the entire exchange, finally understanding everything. The spirit eye activated, a crimson light swirling within his pupil. He now saw the truth of the situation. He glanced at the silenced HWA, then back at the imposing figure of Tang Wu. The old master's gaze sharpened as he waited for So-Sam's final answer. Tang Wu presented the glowing case, his voice echoing with anticipation. He formally asked if So-Sam was ready to accept this agonizing trial in order to receive the surname of the legendary Tang clan. A predatory glint appeared in So-Sam's red eyes. For the chance at this kind of power, there was no other answer. Before him lay the Dragon Phoenix Golden Needles, the key to his transformation and the beginning of a new, terrifying path. In the Murim, there's always talk about kids born with insane martial potential. You've got things like the heavenly meridian body and the wheel-turning sacred emperor aspect. Then there's the cosmic sacred bone and the heavenly martial heart, true legends. These talents are so rare they only pop up once every few hundred or even 1,000 years. If you're born with one, you're basically guaranteed to leave a massive mark on history. But according to Tang Wu, the absolute greatest talent is something else entirely. The old monster is staring down the kid he picked up for free, feeling like he hit the jackpot. He doesn't care about those other once-in-a-century talents anymore. He's convinced So-Sam has a body that hasn't been seen since the dawn of the Murim. The legendary body of no meridians. At first, he thought he was just looking at an ordinary kid who never trained. But looking closer, he realized this body doesn't have a single acupoint or energy pathway. It's just a total void. It's so empty it almost doesn't seem human, but that's exactly what makes it special. With no existing path, Tang Wu can mold him into whatever he wants. He thinks if he raises him right, he can restore the clan's lost 10,000 flower rain technique. If that happens, every power in the Murim will have to bow to the Tang family. The old man is grinning. He's holding the entire future of his family in his hands. He prepares his tools and looks at So-Sam one more time. He asks if the boy is truly ready to take on the Tang surname. So-Sam doesn't blink, he just gives a firm nod. Tang Wu warns him that he isn't a full member of the family yet. He'll eventually have to prove his worth to the elders and the family head. And on top of that, there's a real chance he could die during this ritual. Will you still do it? The kid stares right back, his resolve steady. He's not backing down. The old monster smiles. That's the answer he was looking for. He's ready to perform the Great Reformation ritual. He tells HWA to stand guard outside the room. She heads for the door, leaving the two of them alone with the hovering needles. Energy begins to swirl around the old man as he channels his power into the ritual. Green light flares from his hand as he prepares to strike. He centers himself behind So-Sam, the golden needles glowing with intent. "I shall begin," he says, his eyes focused and sharp. He picks out a specific golden needle, ready for the first puncture. He jams it straight into the top of So-Sam's head. The energy flows through the needle as it embeds itself deep. So-Sam sits silently through the pain, taking it all in. He knows the others think he's clueless since they're using silent sound transmission. But he's using the lip-reading skill he mastered as an assassin to catch every word. He finds the body of no meridians, label hilarious. He knows his body only looks like an empty shell because of his game system. With a status window and stats only he can see, he's become something that's not quite human and not quite a character. Tang Wu is completely sold on the legend. Since the old monster already has this absurd idea in his head, So-Sam realizes he just needs to lean into it. If the guy wants to believe he's found a once-in-a-thousand-year genius, fine. He'll play the part perfectly. Tang Wu gets back to work, focusing every bit of his energy on the boy's back. So-Sam is basically a human pincushion at this point, but Tang Wu couldn't be happier with the results. The old man is impressed. Even with these temporary acupoints, the energy is flowing without a single blockage. In fact, the chi is moving through this empty, vessel several times faster than it would in any ordinary martial artist. To Tang Wu, he's looking at a masterpiece, a talent that only shows up once in a lifetime. But even with his excitement, he's still a paranoid monster. He reaches for a secret box hidden in the room. Inside, a swarm of nasty-looking centipedes are crawling over each other in the dark. He picks out a glowing one. This isn't just a bug, it's a poison goo used for control. He knows he has to be extra cautious. A talent this big is a massive target for anyone else looking for power. He's not about to let anyone steal his new prize, so he starts prepping a little insurance. He plans to plant the goo as a fail-safe, just in case the boy ever tries to turn against him. Without hesitating, he uses a needle to guide the parasite right into the boy's ear canal. His eyes go full psycho as he decides that if he can't own this talent, he'll tear it to shreds so nobody else can have it either. The room is filled with dark green energy as the ritual reaches its peak intensity. Every needle on the boy's back acts like a conduit for the old man's massive power. It's a grueling, surgical process, and Tang Wu is meticulous with every single placement. Finally, the energy begins to settle, and the needles finish their work. Outside, the sun is dipping low, signaling the end of a very long day. The building stands silent as the ritual finally draws to a close. Inside, the fading light leaves the room in heavy shadows. Tang Wu takes a breath, looking at his finished masterpiece. The ritual is over. He tells the boy that his life as a lowly horse handler for the Danri family is done. From this moment on, he's a member of the Tang clan, the greatest family in all of Sichuan. Tang Wu decides he needs a name to go with his new status. He officially names him Tang Sam, the newest disciple of the clan. The boy looks down, accepting the new identity and the danger that comes with it. He gives a short, quiet answer, yes. Outside, HWA is waiting patiently, probably wondering if he even survived the process. The doors creak open, and the last of the sunset spills into the hallway. Tang Sam walks right past her, not saying a single word or even giving her a glance. He heads out into the courtyard, with the evening sun bathing the entire estate in orange light. Once he's sure he's out of sight, he stops and looks back toward the building. He reaches up and activates his inventory skill, pulling the glowing centipede right out of his own head. He doesn't even flinch as he crushes the poison goo into a bloody mess with his bare hand. The old man thought he had a leash on him, but the mute So-Sam is officially a thing of the past. That version of him is gone, left behind in the dirt with the Danri family. Now he's Tang Sam of the Sichuan Tang clan, and the game has just changed. With a new name and the Tang family's backing, he's finally found the wings he needs to fly. The moon hangs high over the mountains, illuminating the Anhui branch of the heavenly demon cult. Inside the fortress, the night is thick with the scent of incense and shadows. A muffled cry echoes from deep within one of the palace chambers. The excited screams of debauchery echoed through the hallways. Inside, the branch leader, Paga Hyol, known as Ash Shadow, is deep in a scene of total debauchery. A hand grips the bedding as the party continues. One of the women lies exhausted, her hair splayed out across the floor. She looks up, her eyes glazed as the night drags on. Suddenly, a masked intruder drops from the ceiling like a ghost. The woman gasps in shock at the sudden arrival. Before anyone can react, the assassin strikes. Blood splattered across the room as the girl's flesh was torn apart, while the young master managed to flash away in the blink of an eye. The young master skidded back, sliding away from the danger zone, and swiftly threw his cloak over his shoulders. Paga Hyol stands up, his arms outstretched in disbelief. The blonde leader stared with a mixture of shock and annoyance, spitting out every word. This is impossible. He immediately starts whining about the blood, staining his expensive Western silk robes. He demands to know how much the intruder thinks those robes actually cost. His playful tone shifts instantly to cold, lethal fury. The assassin, known as 18th Cloud or Mad Cloud, stares back with glowing white eyes. Without a word, the intruder lunges forward, trailing dark energy. A massive blast of power tears through the center of the room. Paga Hyol reaches for the weapons displayed on the wall. A pink glow erupts as he calls his sword to his hand. He catches the blade, ready to fight back. The two clash, purple and black energy colliding with a violent shockwave. Neither side gives an inch as they lock blades. Hyol smirks, seemingly amused by the challenge. He laughs and tells the assassin that he's weak as hell. With a broad sweep of his arm, he continued to summon another saber to his left hand. Mad Cloud dodges, his black cloak whipping through the air like a shadow. They continue their high-speed dance across the ruined chamber. The branch leader shouts, refusing to let his target escape. Chaotic flashes of light filled the room as the young master unleashed a barrage of blade chi from the twin sabers in his hands. The killer gathers his power, his blade glowing with an ink-like darkness. Hyol's eyes widen as he recognizes the familiar, terrifying technique. A massive, jet-black slash tore through the remnants of the blade chi shadows, obliterating everything in its path. The swirling dark energy spiraled, absorbing the destruction in its wake, before causing the remaining blade chi remnants to vanish completely. A wider camera angle reveals the assassin standing at the center of the storm, his strike complete as he neutralizes every threat pouring down on him like rain. Through the settling dust, Mad Cloud's single glowing eye remains fixed on his target. The destructive Kai slowly dissipates, leaving the room in ruins. Hyol stares at the blade, recognizing the legendary ink-light killing sword. An imposing, gray-haired man finally speaks, asking Mad Cloud if it's really been 10 years. The gray-haired man, unmasked as Mad Cloud, corrects him. It's been exactly 9 years and 190 days. Ash Shadow bursts out laughing at the killer's obsessive memory. He says he knew it was him. Nobody else remembers such trivial details. The blonde leader asks why the 18th Cloud is visiting his branch in person. Mad Cloud tells him orders have come down from the top. Ash Shadow is all ears. The command is simple: execute the first stratagem. Ash Shadow's playful expression vanishes instantly. He's finally getting to do it, but he immediately asks about Shifting Shadow. Mad Cloud confirms the target is the Namgung clan, specifically Shifting Shadow's wedding on the 15th. Ash Shadow repeats the word, stunned by the news. His eyes narrow with a cold, simmering rage. He can't believe Shifting Shadow is actually getting married. He clenches his teeth, the news clearly striking a nerve. He asks what the scope of the mission should be. The answer is chilling: kill everyone except Shifting Shadow and his bride, Namgung Hai. Ash Shadow taps his finger on the desk, weighing the plan. He seems to be calculating the risks of such a massive attack. The room falls silent as he sits in thought. He mentions that Tang Wu, the soul-chasing poison hand, will arrive soon. Their current force won't be enough. Mad Cloud reassures him that the 5 shadows will be sent to reinforce the branch. Ash Shadow taps the desk again, satisfied with the reinforcements. He admits that should be plenty. Ash Shadow smirks with twisted delight, having fully savored and accepted the final orders. With his mission finished, the messenger turns and walks away. Ash Shadow watches him go, his mind already elsewhere. He sits back and tries to recall Shifting Shadow's real name. Mad Cloud's expression turns bitter and resentful as he glares back at his former brat of a partner. He doesn't even bother to say another word, activating his skill and vanishing into a cloud of black smoke. Left all alone, the young master grumbles that the guy is just as insufferable as ever. He's frustrated, stuck rotting away in this gloomy Anhui branch. Meanwhile, Shifting Shadow became a hero of the Orthodox faction. And to top it off, he even got the most beautiful woman in Anhui as his bride. Ash Shadow looks out from the balcony, unable to contain his envy. He snaps his fingers, calling for his servants. He walks out of the room without looking back. He orders them to clean the room and get rid of the filth on the bed. He doesn't stop there, his cruelty showing through. With a chilling command, he orders them to slaughter every guard on duty today for their utter incompetence. His subordinate bows low, knowing better than to question the order. The leader looks out over the city lights. He gazes at the territory he's about to drench in blood. This is the Anhui branch of the heavenly demon divine cult, the spark for a new war. Hyol stands with his robes hanging open, bloodstains marking his chest and garments. He is the branch leader of Anhui, known as the Naked Silver Demon. His gaze is heavy and arrogant as he prepares for the upcoming slaughter. A wicked grin spreads across his face. For him, the real game is only just beginning. High above the valley, the full moon illuminates the sprawling city lights of Hefei, the heart of Anhui province. In the shadows of the forest, the rhythmic sound of hundreds of marching feet echoes through the night. An army of the heavenly demon cult descends toward the unsuspecting city, their banners fluttering in the dark. Elsewhere, a different group travels the mountain paths on horseback, led by a stern old master. Tang Wu, the soul-chasing poison hand, notes that they have arrived at their destination sooner than expected. So Sam looks out at the distant lights, realizing they've finally reached the domain where the powerful Namgung clan reigns supreme. Looking down from above, the people look so small against the backdrop of a flourishing and prosperous Anhui, the very place that will serve as the starting point for the cataclysmic shifts that will change the entire Murim forever. The streets are packed with people drinking and eating as the city prepares for a massive celebration. A lion dance winds through the crowd, while everyone cheers for the upcoming wedding. The Namgung clan's estate is decked out in lanterns, showing off just how much money they're throwing at this festival. But near the gates, a guard is busy making life miserable for a group of starving beggars. They're on their knees, begging for just a single lump of rice to share among them. The guard isn't interested in charity. He looks like he's about to start swinging. He screams at them to get lost, acting like their presence is an insult to the clan. Before they can even move, he winds up and kicks one of the beggars right in the face. The old man gets knocked back, and his friends scramble to help him as the guard keeps shouting. A voice from the doorway cuts through the noise, asking what the hell is going on. Du Hyo-woke, the rising star of the Murim world, steps out into the light. The guard's tough guy act disappears instantly as he stammers about the beggars swarming the place. Du Hyo-woke doesn't get angry. He just gives the guard a calm, almost disappointed look. The guests nearby start whispering, immediately recognizing the handsome hero. He ignores the guard and walks straight toward the beggars on the ground. He reaches out with a kind smile, asking if the old man is okay. The beggars can't believe it. They've probably never seen a noble show them this kind of respect. He helps the man up personally, playing the role of the perfect hero for everyone to see. He tells the guard to stop being a jerk and make sure these people get some of the leftover wedding food. The guard bows and scurries off to follow orders, while Du Hyo-woke heads back inside. The onlookers are impressed, talking about how he defeated the twin demons and is the perfect match for the clan's daughter. Rumors say he's a legend in the making, a lone wanderer who's now becoming Murim royalty. But the peaceful mood breaks when some guy in the crowd gets shoved from behind. The man turns around ready to throw hands, telling whoever it was to watch where they're going. Then he sees the face. It's the soul-chasing poison hand, Tang Wu. The guy's face gets palmed as he realizes he just barked at one of the deadliest elders in the land. Tang Wu doesn't give a damn. He palms the guy's face with a heavy strike and tells him to get the hell out of his way. He marches through the crowd, calling everyone useless bastards while his granddaughter and So Sam follow. Inside, Du Hyo-woke is busy playing the perfect host, greeting guests with a smile. He notices the group from the Tang clan arriving and looks over. Tang Wu gets fed up with the background chatter and just yells for everyone to shut the hell up. He stands in the middle of the courtyard, basically challenging anyone to tell him he shouldn't be there. He glares at the crowd, telling them if they have something to say, they should say it to his face. Du Hyo-woke steps in to smooth things over, asking Tang Wu to calm down. He gives a deep, polite bow, introducing himself as the man of the hour. Tang Wu just looks him up and down, asking if he's really the reason he had to travel all this way. Tang Wu stares into the boy's eyes and admits he looks decent, but that's about it. He bluntly tells Du Hyo-woke that meeting him today is actually a huge disappointment. Tang Wu ignores the confusion and asks if Namgung Byok is inside, and the kid points the way. Du Hyo-woke quickly recovers and offers to guide the group to the king's hall himself. They head into the main building, leaving the stunned guests behind. But So Sam is just standing there, his eyes wide as he realizes the hero in front of him is actually a high-level predator. A blue system window pops up, warning So Sam that a high-level enemy is within 20 meters. He stares ahead, his eyes locked on the target while the festival crowd blurs around him. He notices a weird vibe from the new guy. The way he moves is just too consistent and robotic. He puts two and two together and realizes this rising star is the monster the system is screaming about. His red eyes narrow, scanning for any sign of human weakness in the man's posture. Usually, people are naturally asymmetrical, with one shoulder slightly higher or limbs at different lengths. But looking at Do-hee-wook, the guy is biologically perfect, down to the millimeter. It sends a chill through him as he makes a startling realization. This guy isn't just a genius, he's another predator hiding in plain sight just like himself. High above, rows of swords are embedded in the roof, a display of the clan's martial history. This is the King's Hall, the heart of the prestigious Namgung clan's estate. It's a massive structure designed to intimidate anyone who steps foot on the grounds. Outside, Do-hee-wook starts explaining that the swords belong to past clan heads, but nobody's really listening. Tang Wu just rolls his eyes, thinking about how these kings will all end up rotting in the same dirt eventually. The kid tries to ask them to wait outside, but the elder isn't having it and just marches forward. They start the long climb up the stairs toward the massive main entrance. Tang Wu doesn't care about protocol. He's heard the host is waiting, so he's going in. The doors swing open, revealing a massive, ornate hall that practically screams wealth and power. Inside, the clan head and his daughter are waiting, and HWA excitedly greets her uncle. They walk onto the expensive carpets, the heavy atmosphere of the room pressing down on them. Namgung Byok, the clan head himself, steps forward to welcome Tang Wu after what feels like ages. Tang Wu scoffs at the greeting, calling the man a disgrace for running a clan with so little dignity. Byok doesn't even flinch, he just lets out a small, knowing smirk. The two elders clearly go way back, laughing and insulting each other like old friends. In the background, the beautiful Namgung Hai watches the exchange with a sharp eye. HWA is a bit shocked, wondering just how close her grandfather and the clan head actually are. She catches Hai's gaze, and the two girls share a brief, silent moment of recognition. Hai breaks the silence first, giving HWA a warm greeting and nodding how long it's been. HWA chirps back, complimenting her sister on how pretty she's gotten since they last met. Do-hee-wook stands back and watches the reunion with that same unshakable, perfect smile. He finally introduces himself properly, but HWA is already asking if she can start calling him brother-in-law. The girl is practically vibrating with excitement, much to the embarrassment of her family. Hee-wook just laughs it off, while HWA teases her, wondering how a shy girl like Hai managed to seal the deal so quickly. Hai facepalms at the girl's lack of filter, wishing she'd just stopped talking for 5 minutes. Her eyes wander over to the silent boy, standing behind the Tang group. Curious, she asks HWA who the kid with the intense eyes is. So Sam stands in the shadows of the hall, looking more like a ghost than a guest. HWA realizes she hasn't introduced him yet and starts to speak up. But he beats her to it, introducing himself simply as Tang Sam. The two women look him over, trying to figure out where this mysterious kid came from. Do-hee-wook, ever the gentleman, steps forward with an open palm to welcome him. So Sam stares at the offered hand, wondering if the hero can feel the monster hiding inside him. So Sam's gaze remains cold and analytical as he stares into the eyes of the other predator. He finally grasps the man's hand, and they share a brief, firm handshake while sizing each other up. Do-hee-wook suddenly speaks up, his voice cheerful as if he's just had a brilliant thought. He mentions his plans to take Namgung Hai to Soho Lake tonight to watch the lanterns under the full moon. With a friendly smile, he asks So Sam if he and HWA would like to join them for the festival. A chillingly perfect smile spreads across his face, one that hints at the dangerous game he's playing. Do-hee-wook makes sure to include Tang Sam in the evening's plans. The moon shines bright over Soho Lake, where hundreds of lanterns have been set adrift. It looks like a typical high society outing on the water. The ladies enjoy the view from the ship's railing. Do-hee-wook explains that Soho Lake is famous for its stunning night scenery. It's a picture-perfect moment, but Tang Sam isn't relaxing. The host continues to flatter sister HWA, comparing her to the moonlight. He suggests the men leave the ladies to their talk and go grab a drink together. He turns and walks toward the cabin to fetch some wine. Tang Sam watches his back, convinced Do-hee-wook is just a predator in disguise. He knows anyone this perfect is hiding something massive. He's sure the guy is plotting something substantial behind that smile. Footsteps echo on the deck as someone approaches. A sudden sense of dread washes over Tang Sam. The system confirms it. An enemy 10 levels higher is within 20 meters. He snaps his head around to check his surroundings. The deck is mostly empty, but the alert is still active. That's when it hits him. The alert isn't for Do Hyu, okay? He quickly estimates the ship's length and height. If the threat is this close but not visible, it has to be below him. Do Hyu, okay, strolls back onto the deck, claiming the wine was in an odd spot. Tang Sam realizes he's dealing with a new enemy entirely. The ship drifts further into the lake, away from any help. The host offers up a bottle of Jumaju, a precious wine specifically for Tang Sam. Tang Sam stands his ground, his mind elsewhere. He fakes a stomach ache, asking to be excused for a moment. Do Hyu, okay, doesn't bat an eye, telling him to just ask the boatman for directions. He gives Tang Sam a look that's a bit too intense to be friendly. Tang Sam heads straight for the ship's interior anyway. He moves quickly through the dark corridors. The system pings again. The distance to the threat is dropping. He realizes the enemy is moving closer to his current position. He keeps going, tracking the pings through the walls. Suddenly, another high-level alert pops up. He stops in his tracks, staring into the pitch-black hallway. That's 2 enemies hidden down here now. Then a third alert hits, followed immediately by a fourth. With Do Hyu okay upstairs, that makes 5 monsters on one boat. Tang Sam's eyes flare red as his psychopathic instincts take over. He looks out at the lanterns, knowing the piece is about to end. He grips the ledge, ready to start his own hunt. Tang Sam reasons that kidnapping isn't the primary goal here. If it were, they would have made a move by now. He's certain the entire Namgung clan is the real target. He clenches his fist, feeling the weight of the situation. He knows these enemies are at least 10 levels higher than him. He can't even tell exactly how big the gap is between them. A coordinated infiltration like this means they're aiming to overthrow the clan entirely. He leans against the railing, deep in thought. He's caught between his dangerous mentor, Tang Wu, and the clan's enemies. He looks down into the dark water. A twisted, psychopathic grin spreads across his face as his eyes glow red. A wave of sheer, unadulterated madness consumes his entire being, and he decides it's finally time to strike. The boat glides through the calm water under the full moon. The estate looms ahead, festive lanterns lighting up the shore. On the perimeter, the sound of marching boots hits the stone floor. The estate's waterway guards begin their nightly patrol. A subordinate asks squad leader Go Sangong if such a long patrol is necessary. The squad leader doesn't take the questioning lightly. He grabs the subordinate by the hair, demanding respect. He slams the man's head down, telling him to stop complaining. He reminds the group that the upcoming wedding requires perfect security. He orders the slackers to hand over the lantern and get moving. 2 guards crouch low as they creep into the ship's cabin, one of them mocking the rookie, saying his constant grumbling might just piss off the head manager. The manager leaves the guards to their duties, muttering under his breath and cursing them for being a bunch of lazy bastards. Leaning his back against the wall, Go Sangong stands alone, dreaming of being on a real battlefield instead of this boring post. He wishes some enemies would actually show up to spice things up. A faint splashing sound echoes from the dark water nearby. 2 guards venture into the pitch-black tunnels with a single candle. One of them complains about being stuck here while the rest of the clan is celebrating. He turns toward the youngest guard, hopping for a bit of sympathy, only to see the gaunt, hollow face of our main guy emerging like a scene straight out of The Nun. A cold, whose breath is the only warning they get. Panic sets in as the guards realize they aren't alone in the dark. Before they can draw their swords, a blade flashes through the air. Metal clashes as the guards try to defend themselves. A fountain of blood sprays as the attacker tears through them. A body hits the water with a heavy splash. The shadows are filled with systematic, brutal violence. A discarded sword sinks silently into the depths. The tunnel goes quiet once again. The sounds of the massacre fade into the night. Back at the main post, Go-sangong lets out a long, bored yawn. He grumbles that his partners are taking way too long to finish their rounds. Squad leader Go-sangong mutters under his breath, certain his subordinates are slacking off again. He grips his wooden torch firmly, the flames casting long, dancing shadows against the damp stone. "Ah, Tilda, just wait till I catch these bastards," he growls as he wades through the dark, flooded tunnel. He slows his pace, sensing something amiss in the thick gloom ahead. The veteran guard leans forward, his eyes straining to pierce the darkness. "What is this?" he whispers, discovering a severed human arm bobbing in the murky water. Terror washes over him as he realizes the gravity of the situation. WHY is an arm. He begins to shout for his missing men, his voice echoing frantically. "Youngest, Dachil." He swings the torch wildly, but the oppressive darkness seems to swallow the light. The sound of his own heavy breathing and the splashing water are the only replies he receives. He spins around in a panic, unaware that a cold, unblinking eye is tracking his every move. In the shadows, So-sam watches the guard's terror with predatory calm. "Where was that one arm?" So-sam mocks Go-sangong's own question in a bone-chilling voice, while the squad leader stands frozen, his mind completely failing to process the gruesome carnage before him. The torchlight illuminates the horrific display. His squad has been systematically butchered and pinned to the walls. Go-sangong's spirit breaks as he stares at the carnage. Oh, a casual voice chirps. So-sam is revealed, crouching calmly amidst the remains of the guards. So-sam gazes up with a chilling, hollow expression. "I was just missing an arm," he remarks coolly.